Hello and welcome to Six Part. Today I'm going to continue the series What If Deku Was Trained by His Father Part 2. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and to watch more videos like this, subscribe to my channel and turn that bell notification on so you never miss an upload. Now wasting no more time, let's begin.
It felt like the past 4 months flew by. Despite all the work she had to do as a hero, Izuku continued to spar with Maki, making time to do so once a week. She also didn't lag behind him. She adapted to Izuku's new quirk and frequently outperformed him in their spars just as frequently as he outperformed her. Izuku gained a growth spurt and kept up the training All Might had given him. He was now 6 feet tall and weighed a trim 220 pounds. Nevertheless, he was unable to overcome his father despite his increased size, strength, and raw power. Izuku was repeatedly vanquished by Hisashi, who was even more powerful than he was, in addition to having more expertise and experience. Finally, however, the day of the the entrance exam arrived. Izuku's father told him not to worry about working out because he would need all of his energy for the test. Izuku woke up later. Although he was getting ready with butterflies in his stomach, he took a moment to look at Maki's laminated autograph of Mirko before leaving his room to take the exam. For this day, he had been preparing for 4 years. He could use the power of one for all to defeat her and even draw with a pro hero like Hellcat. As his mother, father, and younger sister accompanied him on the train and bus to the United States of America, he felt a renewed sense of resolve. Hie to the location of the exam. His father remarked, "You got this, son." As they saw Yue, his mother hugged him close to the bus stop after they got off, saying, "I've seen you work so hard, Izuku. I know you'll do us proud." 3-year-old Hisako exclaimed, "Go get M, big brother's the best." Izuku nodded and laughed. That's right. He approached the main entrance, but as he did, his feet became tangled and he began to fall. When he heard a girl exclaim, "Whoa there," he stopped falling. Izuku felt a tiny hand lift him up and place him back on his feet, and he exclaimed, "Huh? What?" When he finally saw the girl, he blushed a little when he heard her say, "Release." Her round face was framed by auburn shoulder-length hair with bangs and pink cheeks, making her smaller than him and adorable. "Sorry about that," the adorable child replied. "I used my quirk on ya. Anything I touch I can switch the gravity off. I just didn't want to see you fall on your face." With a voice, Izuku said, "No problem, thank you." With her eyes the same color as her hair, the girl nodded and opened her eyes before waving as she entered the building and said, "Well, I hope I see you later. Good luck with the entrance exam." Izuku waved back and said, "Yeah, good luck." Instead, he turned back to his family when he sensed that someone was watching him. Hisako was giggling, his mother appeared worried, and his father was grinning broadly and giving him a wink. Izuku hurried into the building where the entrance exam would be held after blushing. A written exam was given to them first, and then they were led to a different campus building to get an overview of the practical exam. After locating his seat, Izuku noticed that Present Mike was the announcer. As Present Mike described how the entrance exam operated, Izuku couldn't help but mutter. They would essentially be battling robots that, depending on their design, were worth a specific number of points. Those with the highest point totals would be admitted to the UA Hero course. High school. Excuse me, the papers you gave us indicate that there will be 4 robots we will be facing. I have concerns about the discrepancy. One of the taller boys said, and you, pointing to Izuku, who had blue eyes and hair and glasses. Your constant muttering is distracting. Stop it, he said, his face displaying anger. Izuku said, sorry, but the other boy appeared even larger and more grave than Izuku. I do have an explanation for that, Present Mike replied. Think of the 4th robot as more like an unstoppable obstacle. It is worth 0 points to destroy it. The serious boy bowed politely and sat back down, saying, I see, my apologies. Izuku questioned whether the serious boy's issue was simply nerves and being overly formal. Their futures depended on the exam, so they were all anxious. Okay, said Present Mike, go to your lockers and prepare yourself. Everyone changed into different workout attire after going to their lockers. After his last growth spurt, Izuku's only clothing options were black workout pants and a sleeveless green shirt that flaunted his muscles. Izuku noticed the cute girl from earlier there as they were all led to the area where they would battle the robots. He let her be and stretched for a minute to prepare since it seemed like she was trying not to get anxious. Present Mike's voice boomed over an intercom, get ready, and Izuku boosted his power to the maximum he could manage, 30% of 1 for all's power. Begin. Like a crackling green missile, Izuku took off, kicked the first robot he came across, and then swiftly advanced to another. He continued to move, concentrating only on battling the robots and not monitoring his score. Having said that, he saw other potential hero students, such as the serious boy, who had mufflers on his calves that made him as fast as Izuku and allowed him to kick the robots to scrap, or a blonde boy wearing a belt on his stomach that launched lasers everywhere. Like Izuku, there was a big, muscular boy who handled the robots with his bare hands and appeared to have fleshy wings growing from his arms. Izuku narrowly escaped a living shadow that resembled a crow before refocusing on eliminating the robots, avoiding their lasers, and attempting to avoid being struck by his classmates. This school is full of cool students with amazing quirks. Is it possible for me to stay ahead of them? Turning around, Izuku saw the cute girl touching the robots and making them float. Then, she put her hands together and exclaimed, "Release!" And the robots were destroyed as they fell to the ground. Izuku noticed a robot approaching from behind her as she paused to catch her breath. When Izuku ran past her and kicked the robot to pieces, he shouted, "Look out!" The cute girl said, "Thanks," and Izuku grinned and said, "Anytime. Good luck." He then hurried off to find more robots. When Present Mike said, "1 minute left," the floor began to tremble. What's going on? An earthquake. Abruptly, a huge robot appeared as a building collapsed. Holy crap. Run. The enormous zero-pointer robot caused many students to flee, and Izuku was about to follow suit when he heard a girl scream. When he looked, he saw that the cute girl was trapped beneath some debris. "You won't hurt her," Izuku yelled as he threw all of his strength into his legs and leapt in the direction of the zero-pointer, forgetting everything he had been practicing for. As he soared through the air, he felt like Superman from an old comic book, putting all of his might into his right fist before shouting, "Detroit Smash." He punched the zero-pointer with all of his strength, knocking it to the ground and destroying its head. Izuku was finally struck by how strong he was as he watched it fall. Izuku began to fall immediately after gravity decided to remind him that it existed. He screamed, "OCRAAP," as he began to fall. "Whoa, I can't move my legs. I think I broke them, as well as my right arm. I was so intent on getting that girl help. To hit the ground and prevent myself from splatting, I must use my last arm." Izuku prepared a final, life-saving maneuver by powering up his left arm, but he was abruptly slapped. Izuku reduced his speed and came to a halt just a few centimeters above the ground. The cute girl slapped him after he noticed that she had floated on top of some wreckage, allowing him to slow down before he became a massive red stain on the road. The cute girl pressed her hands together and gasped, "Release," before Izuku collapsed. Not as much as it would have if she hadn't saved him, but it still hurt. The cute girl turned away from Izuku after saying, "Aloha," and appearing extremely lightheaded. "Are you all right?" he asked after hearing her throw up. "I'll be fine," the cute girl replied. "This happens when I lift things that are too heavy with my quirk. I get vertigo and then puke. Sorry about that. What about you? Your legs? Your arm? They're all kinds of busted up." "I put too much strength in my quirk," Izuku said, feeling the pain of 3 broken limbs as his adrenaline wore off. His whole body felt like it was on fire from using one for all for longer than ever before, and he gasped in surprise. "Time up. The test is over. Everyone please remain where you are while our medical staff arrives to check on any injuries," said Present Mike as the alarm went off. "You saved me. Why?" the adorable girl asked Izuku as she approached. Through the agony, Izuku grunted, "Do I need a reason to help someone? Isn't that what being a hero is all about? I saw you were in trouble, and I just moved." Uraraka Ochako, the adorable girl, gave her introduction. "Thank you," she said. Izuku introduced himself as Midoriya Izuku. "It's good to meet you," he said. Recovery Girl walked over and said, "Okay everyone, you did your best, now it's time to head out. If you are uninjured, then you are free to go." She was asked by Uraraka Ochako, "Can you really help him?" "He'll be fine, dear," Recovery Girl reassured her. "My quirk will make him right as rain, no doubt about it." Izuku reassured her, "I'll see you at UA, Uraraka-san," and gave her a thumbs up with his working hand. Uraraka walked away after giving him the thumbs up. Izuku blushed when Recovery Girl said, "Ah, young love," and then she used her quirk to kiss him and heal his wounds. Izuku said, "Thanks a lot, Recovery Girl," and stood up. As she gave him some gummies to help him regain his energy, Recovery Girl reminded him, "You need to be more careful, kid. I'm not going to be around to heal you when you need to save a damsel in distress." While Recovery Girl went to check on more applicants, Izuku tried to say, "It just a you see I saw her in danger and I couldn't just stand through ya." But he was silent and left. Izuku returned to his regular attire after going to the lockers. So, how was it? Was it too hard? You didn't get hurt, did you? His mother asked him as they made their way to the bus station, where his entire family was waiting for him. Izuku said, I'm fine, Mom, which wasn't exactly a lie. I did my best, and I think I did really good. Plus I met a girla. His father asked him, oh, was it that cute girl outside? Izuku replied, yeah, to which his father replied, laughing, I think it's time I teach you a few things, son. One of the most embarrassing days of Izuku's life was the day following the entrance exam. On that day, his father made the decision to have the dreaded sex talk with the teenage boy. After they had cleaned up and completed their workout, Hisashi said to Izuku, son, we're going to have that talk I mentioned yesterday. Meet me in your room. Izuku interrupted himself because his sister was present and asked, do we need to? After realizing what his father was discussing. I already learned about sea stuff in school. When Hisashi said, yes, we do. This is important for a boy your age to know, Izuku gave up. We might as well finish it now. Izuku had 2 cucumbers, a box of condoms, and a few books when Hisashi first met him in his room. It would be an understatement to say that practicing using condoms while replacing his phallus with a cucumber was embarrassing. Izuku wished he could meet someone who had a mind-erasing quirk when his father assured him that it wasn't a stretch. Hisashi was large and even told Izuku that his mother could vouch for it. However, his father was adamant about it, stating that he was old enough to need to know this, particularly if he ever had sex with Uraraka Ochako or another girl. Okay, son, now we should talk about something that's also important. You need to understand consent, Hisashi said after that was finished. Izuku wished this would end. I know that no means no, dad, he said. Hisashi replied, that's good, but it means more than that. If you ever meet that special someone and you decide to have sex, you need to be able to talk to them as well. There's a lot of things you can do sexually with someone, and some of it can be dangerous if not done properly. Oh, please tell me you and Mom aren't kinky, Izuku said, using his hands to cover his crimson face. The reason our relationship works is that we always talk to each other, we respect each other's preferences, and we let each other know if something makes us uncomfortable. If you meet someone who loves you, they will listen to you as well, so you don't have to do anything you're not comfortable with either. Hisashi shrugged as he continued, we're not completely vanilla, but we're not like midnight levels of bondage if that's what you're worried about. Being in a healthy relationship involves more than just having sex, it also involves living a healthy life. You get it, son? Still feeling ashamed, Izuku nodded and said, I'm telling you this because you need to know that it's not just your partner's desires that matter in a relationship. Hisashi asked. Love isn't really love unless it's reciprocal, an exchange. These books are to help you understand these subjects a little better, plus they have good information about the physical act of lovemaking too, Hisashi said after Izuku nodded and placed the books on Izuku's bed. When the time comes, that could be very beneficial to you. I understand, Dad. However, Izuku remarked, this is really awkward. I know, Hisashi responded, but at least this is better than being taught the way I was. Dad, Izuku said gravely, do you really think I need to know this stuff? He took up Loving Forms. A Practical Guide to Sex, one of the books Hisashi had brought. I think you should know this, Hisashi shrugged. That's what made me a suitable partner for your mother. I learned a lot of things from reading books. Hisashi grinned as he remarked, we weren't expecting you as early as you arrived. I'm not exactly hot on the idea of you losing your virginity too soon, but there are some things I'm not in control of. However, things never go as planned in life. At the very least, you ought to enjoy yourself if you do run into that special someone. Izuku was left alone by Hisashi for a while, and since he wasn't sure how he should react to everything, he chose to start reading a different book called Sexual Ethics 101, which at least seemed milder than the final book his father had left behind, Becoming a Sex God. The week after, Izuku had been very nervous when he left the entrance exams, but he would never tell his parents. Did I score enough points? Was Uraraka-san's income sufficient? I hope to see her once more. What happened to All Might? Even though Izuku knew All Might had important responsibilities as the #1 hero and symbol of peace, he hadn't heard much from All Might since he cleared the beach, and it appeared that sightings of All Might had begun to taper off even online. What might have occurred? Is his injury causing him to become weaker? Or because I got his one for all quirk from him? He was thinking when he heard his mother yelling with excitement, and when he came out of his room, he saw her scurrying on the ground, saying, Izuku, Yue sent you a letter. She was able to inform him that Hisako was riding on his father like a cowgirl wearing the proper pink hat while his father was crawling on the ground. Hisashi said to him, open it, son. Let's watch this together. When Izuku nervously opened the envelope, A small circular object fell out and then activated, projecting an image of All Might into the air. All Might. Izuku nodded anxiously, and Inko removed Hisako from Hisashi's back. They all sat on the couch. The Midoriyas all happily said as the projection laughed All Might's heroic laugh, "I am here," in a projection of a video. "I apologize for not being able to speak earlier, but a lot of paperwork goes hand in hand with power." "I hear that," Hisashi said in a whisper. A hand abruptly interrupted All Might, asking, "What?" "Avoid being a showboat. How many of these must I complete?" All Might coughed a little and said, "Okay, sorry, let's get right to the point. You have demonstrated that you are an extremely skilled practitioner of your quirk, Midoriya Izuku. You actually had the highest score of any applicant with an incredible." All Might then pushed a button on a remote control, and Izuku's score displayed 150 points. Izuku said, "I don't understand how. I don't think I destroyed nearly enough robots for that high score." The Midoriyas all applauded when they saw Izuku's high score. "Now then," All Might's projection went on, "destroying robots wasn't the only way you obtained such a high plus ultra score. To determine whether applicants had the brave and selfless heart of a hero, there was a secret test inside the test. You were awarded 60 points for your bravery after destroying enough robots to reach 90 points and adding your rescue score." The projection displayed a video of Izuku defeating the zero-pointer and rescuing Uraraka Ochako. "Son, Kazuto. I had no idea you were so powerful." Hisashi put an arm around his son's shoulders and uttered those words. The All Might projection came to the conclusion that, for all these reasons, you have been admitted to my alma mater. UA elevated. The Midoriya family cheered as the projection came to an end. Hisashi raised Izuku up like he was a toddler once more and exclaimed, "I knew you could do it, my boy. You were amazing. Big brothers are the best." Hisako shouted as loudly as a child of 3 could. "We should celebrate this. Tonight we're going out," Inko shouted, and Izuku grinned. He had been wanting to visit a restaurant with an All Might theme for some time, and this was turning into one of his favorite days ever. Izuku's first day at UA High School and the start of his journey to become a pro hero finally came. He had put on his uniform and tied his tie as best he could, though it was a little short, and he insisted on doing it himself. His mother had to check that he was ready as he left the house. "Are you sure you got everything? Action figures aren't all you're packing up, are you?" "I'm not, Mom. Geez, I know what I need to take to school," as Izuku explained to her. His mother stopped him before he left, saying, "Izuku, wait." He turned around and she said, "Years ago, when you needed me to assure you, I failed you. I just need to make sure," she said. His father had already left for work because he was working extra hours on a difficult kidnapping case. "I will always support you, Izuku," Inko went on, "and so, I made this. Ta-da." Izuku recalled how, when he was 6, his mother could only give him a hug and apologize rather than telling him that he could be a hero. "I didn't tell you the words you needed to hear." As she handed the hero suit to Izuku, Inko revealed a bright green hero suit with white gloves and a helmet that resembled All Might's signature hair. "I might have browsed through your hero journals while I was cleaning in your room," Inko said, adding, "I hope you like it, son." Izuku took the hero suit and looked at it, hugging his mother and trying not to cry with joy. "It's great, Mom." She told him, "Now, get going, and do your best," and Izuku nodded as Hisako strode up and exclaimed, "Do your best, old brother." As he departed his house and boarded the train to UA High School, Izuku nodded and smiled confidently at his younger sister. Izuku's excitement increased as he entered the campus and paused upon arriving at the campus building, saying, "What the hell, Deku, what are you doing here?" Kachan was furious when he saw Izuku, so Izuku turned to face him and exclaimed, "I passed the exams and got in." Izuku couldn't help but smile as he shared, "I even got the top score of 150 points. "You are an absolute liar," Kachan shouted. "A loser like you could never have received such a high score. That's nearly twice what I received." Izuku replied, "Well, I did," then clenched his fist and activated One for All. He had chosen to call this form Full Cowling, and his father clarified that having a name for the technique would help him summon it. "My superpower quirk came later than your explosion quirk, but I'm a lot stronger than you realize, Kachan. I am no longer defenseless, Deku." Kachan stopped and stared at him as if he were going to blow up, and then he turned away and went inside the school. Izuku also started to move after turning off his computer, and to his dismay, he discovered that he was in the same class as Kachan, Class 1A. When he went inside, he saw that Uraraka Ochako and the big heteromorph boy with the wing-like tentacles were there, along with the serious boy. One pink girl with horns remarked, "You two are the last to arrive. Since we have already introduced ourselves, Why don't you two slowpokes do the same? Izuku apologized for him after Kachan sat down on an empty desk and clicked his tongue. That's how Kachan is. We grew up together. He goes by Bakugo Katsuki in full. Avoid going to introduce me, Deku. I can speak for myself, Kachan shouted. Izuku said, my name is Midoriya Izuku, ignoring him. It's good to meet everyone. The pink girl with horns said, I'm Ishido Mina. Nice to meet you, Midoriya. I'm Kirishima Eijiro, a boy with red hair and teeth that looked sharp said. I'm Aomina Yuga, Mon Amy, said the blonde boy who was exploding with lasers during the entrance exam. I'm Asui Suyu, but you can call me Su-chan, Kiro, said a girl with big eyes and long dark green hair tied in a bow. She was very adorable. And my name is Iida Tenya, said the serious boy from the entrance exam as he approached. I have to express my regret for my behavior during the entrance exam. I thought you were a fool, but judging by your ability to get into our prestigious school, you obviously have the makings of a great hero. No problem, Izuku told Iida. Perhaps he wasn't a villain after all, just anxious about the test. Uraraka Ochako remarked, Izuku, it's good to see you again. Izuku grinned and said, I'm glad you made it too, Uraraka-san. Hearing a girl use his given name made him flush. And then a large-tailed, blonde boy said, I'm Ojiro Mashirao, nice to meet you. I'm Kaminari Denki, said another blonde boy with black bangs that resembled lightning and gold eyes. I'm Keikoto Koji, a boy who resembled a flesh-colored rock monster then muttered, I'm glad to have met you. Then a big boy with thick lips and brown hair, who was even larger than Izuku in stature, said, my name is Sato Rikido. My name is Shoji Mezzo. Nice to meet you, said the big boy with the fleshy wings. The name is Jiro Kyoka. Hi, said a slender girl with long earlobes that resembled earphone jacks and purple hair. A black-haired boy said, I'm Shiro Honta, nice to know ya, after that. Then a boy with red eyes and a black crow's head said, my name is Tokiyami Fumikage. I'm glad to have met you. Afterward, a distinctive-looking boy with red hair and a turquoise eye on the left side of his face, white hair and a gray eye on the right, and a bright red burn scar on his left eye declared, I am Todoroki Shoto. Then, to Izuku's surprise, a girl in an empty uniform leapt up and waved her arms, saying, hello. My name is Hagakure Toru. I'm glad to have met you. Another girl with a distinctive appearance spoke up. She had dark skin, which indicated that she was not Japanese, dark blue-violet hair, bright blue eyes, wolf ears on top of her head, and a wolf tail wagging from her back. She first said in English, then in Japanese, nice to meet you. I'm Marie Freeman all the way from the USA. You can just call me Marie if you want. The final one said, and I am Yayorozu Momo. It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance. She was a tall, attractive girl with dark onyx eyes and long black hair. After everyone had introduced themselves, Izuku remarked, wow, thanks, adding, it's really nice to meet you all. Marie Freeman pointed to a desk that was between her and Uraraka and said, this desk is free, Midoriya-san. A man with long, untidy black hair, wide eyes, and a gray scarf entered through the door just after Izuku had taken a seat. I see you've already introduced yourselves to each other, the man said, so I will introduce myself. I'm Aizawa Shota, and I'll be teaching your homeroom. Let's get started, then. You're going to put on your gym uniforms and go to the lockers. To see what you can do with your quirks, we'll start with a test. Everyone thought the same thing. Already, Aizawa-sensei said, hurry up, we're wasting daylight, and began to walk away. Everyone went to their lockers, but as the girls changed in the girls' locker room, they heard Marie Freeman laughing. The American Wolf Girl exclaimed, hey girls. Check it out. While lifting a poster from the wall. The boys' side has a hole in it. That means Beefcake City, you know. When the other girls heard that, they all flushed, and Marie peered in. Freeman-san. That is totally unsuitable, said Yayorozu. Come on, said Marie, are you not intrigued? Do you not want to know who is a stallion and who is a mouse, or how muscular some of those boys are? As Marie kept looking and even whistled, wow, abs as far as the eye can see, the girls' blushes grew redder at the thought. Powerful quads, protruding biceps, and rippling pecs yum. Oh my, with a cunning smile, she looked up after saying the final one in English, Welp, I know who's the class stallion. It was very clear because he was wearing tidy whities. In my opinion, Midoriya Izuku is a very mature boy. The girls reddened even more when she opened her arms wide, saying, that's impossible. You're right, I was just playing with you girls, Marie said. laughing and drawing her arms closer together. Despite his small size, he still has a lot of advantages. Pay attention, folks. As she began to change her clothes, Yaoyorozu continued to blush and slapped her hand over the hole, which glowed and was now covered in cement, as if it had never been there. My goodness! How did you get so jacked, Marie? Ashido Mina inquired. Years of hard work, Marie said with a smile and a slight flex. Since I was 6 years old, I have been preparing to be a hero like my parents. It benefits my lycanthropic quirk. Yes, Marie was by far the most muscular girl in the class. I'm like a werewolf. When I transform, I'm 10 times stronger, so the stronger I am in my base form, the stronger I am as a werewolf. How powerful are you? As they proceeded to change, Jiro Kyoka inquired. I can bench press slightly more than twice my own body weight in base form, Marie said with a smile. I can bench about 310 pounds, or 140 kilograms, and I weigh 152 pounds, or 69 kilograms. Damn, girl, you're gonna make us look bad, Mina replied. Following Aizawa-sensei to the field after everyone had finished changing, he said, we'll be practicing using your quirks and regular gym exercises. Since you have never done this before, consider it an opportunity to challenge yourself and find your true potential, Aizawa-sensei said. Oh, and one more thing. The worst performing individual will be dismissed. What the devil? Bakugo and Marie both let out screams. This is UA. Only the finest are permitted to graduate here, Aizawa-sensei stated. This isn't the place for you if you can't push yourself. It is my responsibility as your homeroom teacher to ensure that only those who can succeed in the hero world graduate. Show me what you have now. After swallowing, Izuku prepared for the 50-meter dash, the first test, and proceeded to run as if his life depended on it. Go. Midoriya Izuku time, 3.02 seconds, Aizawa said. Bakugo Katsuki time, 4.13 seconds. Izuku rushed forward as Aizawa yelled, and it was all over in a matter of seconds. What the devil? Try anything, and I'll expel you here and now, Kachan screamed, about to begin when Aizawa gave him a glare that made his hair stand on end and his eyes glow red. He warned Kachan, I have high expectations for heroes, and Kachan halted and retreated. Despite everyone's best efforts, Izuku won the dash by a margin of 0.02 seconds, with Iida Tenya coming in second. The grip strength test came next, and Izuku gave it his all while managing a strong grip of 1587 kg. He grinned when he realized how strong he was with One for All. He hadn't really put himself to the test like this before because his parents were worried about what might happen if he pushed himself too hard, and All Might advised him to concentrate on strengthening his body without using his power. Izuku felt as though he might actually become the next symbol of peace and that he was deserving of All Might's trust. Izuku then performed repeated side jumps after inadvertently jumping nearly twice the length of the sandbox during the standing long jump. By the end of that one, Izuku was beginning to experience cramps in his body and briefly disabled full cowling. Man, I need to practice with One for All more frequently and extend the time I can use full cowling. The ball throw came next, and Bakugo went first, yelling, DE, as he unleashed a massive explosion as he tossed the ball. In the end, he tossed it 705.2 meters. Uraraka Ochako was next, and she used her quirk to toss the ball far into the distance. Aizawa Shota showed them the results. No numbers, only the infinity symbol. Infinity. That's an amazing quirk, Uraraka-san. Izuku praised her, and the entire class erupted in astonishment. Thanks, Izuku, she said. Izuku then took charge and threw with all of his strength, or at least 30% of it, and the ball went 943.2 meters in the end. Oh, yeah. That's fantastic. Marie Freeman then stepped up and said, you think that's good, then watch what I can do. Uraraka yelled. Her final distance was 944.0 meters. She then changed, revealing violet fur all over her body, fangs emerging from her mouth, and a loud wolf howl as she threw with all her strength. The last 3 tests of the sit-ups, the seated toe touch, and the distance runa were so simple that Izuku didn't bother keeping track of his score. By the end, he felt sore, as if he had just worked out extra hard, and then he felt a twinge of dread when he recalled what Aizawa-sensei had told them. Marie, you're a badass, Ashido said as she gave her the thumbs up, and Marie reciprocated. Though he wasn't scared for himself, he liked his classmates and thought none of them should have been expelled on the first dia, perhaps with the exception of Kachan. Aizawa-sensei said, okay, time to see the results, as he pushed a button on his phone, causing a holographic image with everyone's ranking to appear above it. First place. Izuku Midoriya Momo Yaoyorozu came in second. Todoroki Shoto came in 3rd. 4th, Bakugo Katsuki. Marie Freeman in 5th place 6th, Iida Tenya. Tokiyami Fumikage, 7th place 8th, Shoji Mezzo. Position 9. Ojiro Mashirao Kirishima Ejiro in 10th position. 11th. Ashido Mina 12th position, Ochako Uraraka. Place 13. Koda Koji 14th position, Rikido Sato. 15th position. Suyu Osui 16th position, Yuga Aoyama. Place 17. Shiro Honta Kaminari Denki came in at number 18. Place 19. Jiro Kyoka 20th, Hagakure Toru. Ashido Mina exclaimed, "Oh man," upon viewing the outcomes. Uraraka said, "I'm so sorry, Toru, you did your best." With a big, sly smile, Aizawa-sensei said, "That was a logical deception, to get you all to give your best for this test. Hold on now," he said, "you don't have to go anywhere. Nobody is returning home just yet." Marie began to say, "Why Yua?" but stopped and muttered, "Just who the hell does this guy think he is?" Izuku glanced over and noticed that Aizawa-sensei had a pair of golden goggles around his neck. "Hey, I know who our teacher is," Izuku said. "Who is he?" As she approached, Uraraka inquired. "Yeah, I heard rumors about a hero that doesn't like publicity, an underground hero with a quirk that switches off quirks, called Eraserhead." Shiro remarked, "Never heard of him." "Well, that's underground heroes for you," Izuku clarified. "My dad mentioned that some heroes, for whatever reason, would rather operate in the background. He claims that even though they can be a little prickly, the majority of them are among the greatest heroes in existence." As Aizawa-sensei put it, "Let's go, you still have other classes to attend." Izuku wasn't sure how much longer he could use full cowling without seriously hurting himself, so it was both boring and a relief when it was all over. Everyone returned to the school, relieved that no one would be expelled on their first day. The remainder of their school day was uneventful, with nothing genuinely heroic, just regular classes. Izuku and Iida Tenya left the school together, talking about their classes. "Hey, Deku." Tenya. Uraraka was running toward them when they turned around. "Hey guys, would you mind if I joined you?" she inquired. "Not at all," expressed Iida. Izuku replied, "Yes, of course. Why did you call me Deku?" "Well, that one angry guy, Bakugo, called you Deku, and you called him Kachan. It looked like you guys are old friends," Uraraka said. "Well, we used to be, sort of. We attended the same schools and grew up together. However, we had a disagreement in middle school, fought, and neither of us prevailed. My quirk didn't appear until last year, and he calls me Deku, which translates to defenseless Izuku. He was an abuser," Izuku told her. "Oh, sorry," Uraraka said, "I was unaware. Deku sounded adorable to me, like the word Dekiru, like a superhero with limitless abilities." "You can call me Deku if you want," Izuku said, blushing. "What? Didn't you just say that was a bad thing?" Iida asked. "It's like a Copernican revolution," Izuku said, covering his face. If a cute girl was using his nickname, he didn't mind. "Coper what? What?" Uraraka uttered in confusion. "Now, if I may use your name, Uraraka-san, is that okay?" Izuku questioned her. Her response was, "Sure, go ahead," Izuku said. "Thanks, Ochako, for helping me pass the entrance exam. It is pleasant to have companions." Iida Tenya remarked, "It sure is," as the three of them made their way to their separate residences, only splitting up at the train station. After the quirk apprehension test, Izuku was overjoyed to return home a few days later. He hoped he would have time to introduce Melissa to his new friends in Iida and Ochako, whom he could discuss with her. After achieving the highest test score, he at last became aware of his full potential. Additionally, he discovered that Maki, also known as Hellcat, had launched a podcast to which he had subscribed. He described his relationship with Hellcat one day as he was leaving with Iida and Uraraka. As they walked, Ochako said, "Really? Your old babysitter and trainer, huh? She must have been pretty tough." Izuku said, "Yeah, but she was always fun and helped teach me a lot about how to fight," while displaying Hellcat's most recent video on his phone to Iida and Ochako. She said, "Hiya, future heroes," as she always did when greeting her fans. She got along well with children and was very well liked by those under 20. She remarked, "Today I'm patrolling Hosu City. I wonder how the day goes," and attached a tiny camera to her cat mask so she could both patrol and flaunt. The majority of the video showed her navigating Hosu, assisting tourists and lost onlookers, and signing a few children's autographs. While she was saying, "Well, it looks like a nice, quiet day, she heard someone yell, "Never mind, time to be a hero." Hellcat saw a big shark man snatching a woman as he ran to the sound of screams. "You're coming with me," declared the shark man. Hellcat yelled, "Let her go now," as she moved in front of him. The shark man remarked, "This doesn't concern you, she owes me big, and she'll pay in full." Startled, Hellcat asked, "Are you a literal loan shark?" "What of it?" exclaimed the loan shark. Hellcat let out her fiery tails and yelled, "Let her go, or I'll have to arrest you for kidnapping and disturbing the peace." He chomped at Hellcat after the loan shark threw the woman away, saying, "I guess I'll have Cat instead." However, she deftly sidestepped him and kicked him hard in the face, knocking out multiple teeth. She then kicked him in the stomach with a spinning round motion and tangled her tails around him. The loan shark was quickly handcuffed by Hellcat, and the police showed up to take him into custody. The woman who was almost abducted had long dark hair, glowing green eyes, and a matching strapless dress. "Are you all right, ma'am?" Hellcat asked. "Thank you," the woman said. "I'm okay." Well, that was something. But at least everyone is safe. Crime never pays, future heroes, remember that. "See you later," Hellcat said after removing the camera from her mask as the police took the woman to the hospital for treatment of some minor wounds. Ochako exclaimed, "Man, she's cool. All hi-ya." As the video came to a close, she attempted to mimic her roundhouse kick but nearly fell before catching herself. Izuku nodded. "Yeah, she is. She's the second best fighter one know, aside from my dad." "Oh yes, you mention your father a lot," Iida replied. "Is he some kind of hero?" "Well yes," Izuku replied, "but he told me I shouldn't tell anyone who he is, yet. My mom's real big on keeping our private life private, and Dad said I should make friends who care about me, not who he is. But he suggests that it might change after the UA Sports Festival. So, sorry, Ochako, Iida, but I can't tell you who he is, yet." "Understood," Iida replied, "you should respect the wishes of your parents." The following day, All Might shocked the 1A students by coming into their classroom and bursting into laughter. "Ha ha ha ha. I am here, to begin your battle trials," he exclaimed. When he pushed a button on a remote control and the walls opened, everyone cheered with the news. "Now, get dressed in your costumes and meet me in Grounds B. I will await you there," said robotic arms as they handed the students briefcases bearing their assigned numbers. All Might then ran off, and everyone went to their locker rooms to get dressed in their costumes. Izuku smiled as he put on the costume his mother had made him after glancing at it inside the locker room. Everything fit perfectly, and Izuku stood with pride after he put on the helmet. Placing his hands on his hips, spreading his legs shoulder-width apart, and sticking out his chest, he felt as though his parents were in spirit form. He had a heroic feeling. Kachan interrupted the moment by saying, "Let's go, you damn nerd," and Izuku left with the other boys. Along the way, they met the girls, and Izuku couldn't help but feel nervous when he saw their costumes, particularly Ochako's tight pink and black space outfit, Asui's gorgeous green froggy outfit, and Yaoyorozu's skimpy red outfit. "Look at you all," the symbol of peace said, "you all look like real heroes. Now let's see what you got, you bunch of newbies." He was able to avoid staring too much when they entered Grounds B and saw All Might waiting for them. "You will be split up into two-person teams for today's lesson. One pair will be working as villains, and the other pair will be working as heroes." The entire Grounds B area appeared to be a deserted city. "Your task will be to go into this building here," All Might said, pointing to the building. "The villains will have a weapon, don't worry, it's only a fake, and must protect it for 15 minutes. The heroes will win if they enter the building within that time frame and either capture the weapon or the villains. The villains have to either capture the heroes or guard the weapon until the end of time. You'll be given capture tape for this task, and teams will be assigned randomly by lottery. When you're a hero, you never know who you may need to work with. Now then, line up and take your letters from this box," All Might concluded and raised a box. Everyone looked inside and took out some folded papers. Matching letters will be your teammates and opponents. Izuku was pleased to be paired with Ochako as a hero, but he was disappointed to learn that he would be facing Iida and Kachan. The other teams were Asui Tsuyu and Tokiyami Fumikage as heroes versus Kirishima Eijiro and Shiro Honda as villains. Kaminari Denki and Jiro Kyoka as heroes versus Yaoyorozu Momo and Marie Freeman as villains. And finally, Aoyama Yuga and Ishido Mina as heroes versus Sato Rikido and Kota Koji as villains. Izuku swallowed when he realized he was first, and Kachan made a motion resembling a slit in his throat before pointing down with his thumb as he and Iida passed him and Ochako. Izuku concentrated on trying to think of something to do. He really doesn't like you, Deku, Ochako said. I know, Izuku replied, that's why I need to defeat him. I used to look up to him because he had such a powerful quirk. But now, he's an obstacle, I need to overcome him. With a determined expression on her face, Ochako grinned and said, a fated rivalry, so exciting. Izuku grinned. All right. We need to figure out how to face them. I know Kachan, he'll come right after me. And he won't plan anything for Iida. That means you'll be free to go after the weapon. I'll join you when I can, but I can't make any promises. You might have to face Iida by yourself. Do you have any ideas how I can do it? Ochako asked, nodding. He's got the advantage of speed, she was told. He's wicked fast, I'm sure, with that engine quirk of his. He'll try to kick you, knock you out as fast as possible. You'll need to focus and try to dodge him if you can. And then, use your zero-gravity quirk and push him away if you can, then head for the weapon. That's all I can think of right now. He'll be really fast though, you might get hurt if you face him head-on. That's what it takes to be a hero, Ochako replied. No one ever said it was easy. All right, Izuku said, and All Might said, begin, over a loudspeaker. Ochako and Izuku went inside and began to move through the building's corridors. As they rounded corners, Izuku tried to remain silent and kept his eyes open, anticipating Kachan's next move. Izuku held off on using full cowling because he might have to save it if the battle went on for too long. Kachan was not a pushover despite his strength. He was certain that he had learned from their previous altercation in middle school. Deku. Kachan came around the next corner and Izuku barely avoided an explosive fist before he was jerked out of his reverie. Kachan roared, "Dee!" and threw another explosion at him. Izuku protected Ochako by concentrating and using his body to block the explosion. He focused and activated full cowling at 10%, shouting, "Run Ochako! Get the weapon!" He was certain that a hard blow to Kachan would kill him. Izuku ran at him and yelled, "Come on, Kachan!" Izuku grabbed Kachan's arm and threw him to the ground with all the force he could muster as he attempted another right hook explosion. The ground cracked beneath Kachan, and he gasped in pain. Without releasing his grip, Izuku placed Kachan in a tight arm lock, squeezing his elbow between his knees. "Deku!" cried Kachan in agony, but he overcame it by using his other hand to blast Izuku's face, forcing him to release it and fall backward. Kachan stood up and extended his arm. "This time I'm not holding back, Deku, I'm going to make you regret ever standing against me. By the time I'm done with you, you'll wish you never even heard of UA." Ochako, meanwhile, headed for the weapons room, certain that it was nearby in case Bakugo had attacked them. After searching through several doors, she eventually located the correct room. "Ah ha 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 ha." Iida laughed like a villain. "You heroes have no chance against us. Especially you, Uraraka-kun. For I have removed all the movable items within this room. You have no weapons to use against me." He is really serious about this. Ochako felt like laughing aloud at him, but had to control himself. Then she concentrated and considered Deku's strategy, and chose to amuse themselves by playing along with Iida while she did. "I need no weapons, the only weapon I need is justice," she cried melodramatically. "Surrender, villain. Then come, and we will see how powerful your justice is against my evil," she replied. Ochako concentrated, made the decision to try the direct approach, and dashed toward the weapon. After swiftly grabbing it and raising it, Iida dashed across the room. "Ah ha ha ha." He chuckled wickedly, "Foolish hero. My speed is far too much for you, you shall never have the weapon." Izuku and Kachan carried on with their own battle while Ochako and Iida engaged in combat. It was difficult, but Izuku was pushing through. Even though Izuku avoided most of Kachan's explosions, they still had a powerful effect. Izuku was at a serious disadvantage, so he wasn't letting him get close enough to wrestle with him again. 10% isn't fast enough. I need to move more quickly. He made the decision just as Kachan started yelling at him, "Go for 15, then before I hit him, go back down to 10%. Izuku sprinted toward him after dodging the explosive blast, but Kachan ducked a kick at the last second. "All right, 20%. Izuku made the decision and increased his power because he felt like his body was beginning to tire. "I need to stop this quickly because full cowling is wearing me down." Izuku surprised Kachan by launching himself at him. He then swiftly cut full cowling's power in half and delivered a flurry of blows to Kachan, including an overhead punch to the top of his head, an uppercut to his chin, almost a dozen body blows to his stomach, and a heavy side kick to his stomach that knocked him down the entire hallway. Izuku felt as though he had just finished 3 hours of intense exercise when he deactivated full cowling and fell to his knees. 5 minutes left, All Might said as Izuku stood up to search for Ochako after catching his breath. Izuku turned around and saw Kacchan marching towards him, clutching his stomach while spitting blood from his mouth. "Where the hell are you going, Deku?" he exclaimed. As he aimed one of his grenade-shaped gauntlets at Izuku, he exclaimed, "I'm not done yet. These gauntlets aren't just to help me weather the backlash from my explosions. They also hold my excess sweat. And they're fully charged. Now die." All Might shouted into their ear microphones, "Bakugo Shonen, stop. It'll kill him." "He'll survive if he dodges it," Kacchan retorted, causing a massive explosion as he yanked the pin on his gauntlet. Izuku clapped his hands together with all of his strength as he rapidly powered up to 30% full cowling. Just millimeters away from Izuku's body, the shockwave his clap produced dissipated the pillar of explosive fire, but he was unharmed. Izuku then ran at Kacchan's full speed, disregarding caution. Izuku seized his gauntlets before he could respond, crushing them in his hands to release his perspiration and make them useless. Unfazed, however, Kacchan kicked Izuku in the stomach, forcing him to release his grip. Izuku finished using full cowling and gritted his teeth, fighting through aching muscles. Kacchan retaliated with an explosive punch after Izuku delivered another blow to his face. Pain burned in Izuku's arms as his costume was further ruined after he blocked the punch and the next 3. Kacchan shouted, "Come on, show me what you got, Deku," and threw Izuku onto his back with a double-handed explosion. Exhausted and as badly injured as Izuku, Kacchan halted and dropped his arms. Ochako, meanwhile, was no closer to seizing the weapon. She was concerned about her teammate and asked, "Deku, what's going on?" "On the other end," Deku said, "this is more difficult than I anticipated. Remember the plan. You can succeed, Ochako." Keeping the weapon away from Iida, Ochako swallowed and turned to face her. He was evil because he was now a villain. It must have pleased evildoers to rule over others. They behaved that way in comics and TV series. In order for her plan to succeed, she had to entice Iida to her and hope he was sufficiently involved in the act. She appeared to run to the weapon once more, but she stumbled and fell. As she collapsed face down, she was only pretending to be a little more worn out than she actually was from running around. Iida exclaimed, "Foolish hero, you've worn yourself out." She waited as she heard him approach her. "Now then, I might as well finish this, and capture you," he replied. Ochako grabbed her opportunity as his foot approached her hand. "No? How did I fall for such a trap?" he exclaimed as she grasped Iida's ankle with both of her hands. Ochako said, "Sorry, Tenya," and rolled onto her back, dragging the now gravityless Iida along and tossing him to the side. Ochako hurriedly stood up and ran to the weapon as he flew to the opposite side of the room. Iida attempted to halt his flight by using his boosters. "I got it!" exclaimed Ochako as he snatched up the weapon. As the timer sounded, All Might exclaimed, "Battle over, heroes win." Iida praised her, saying, "Good job, Ochako-kun. Can you please release me now?" Iida fell to the ground and stood up after Ochako said, "Right, sorry," and then she put her hands together and said, "Release." "HHHHOOWWWWW. How could I let those losers beat me?" Bakugo screamed, and they followed the sound to locate him and Izuku. Ochako exclaimed, "Deku," as she rushed to her teammate. "Ochako. You did it," exclaimed Izuku. He ran at her and gave her a hug despite his injuries, including bruises and a nearly ruined costume. "Dekua." Ochako was red in the face. He then released her, and she could see that he was blushing too through his broken helmet. "Sorry, I was just so excited." "You did great," he said to her. Through the loudspeakers, All Might declared, "Now, while the rest of the class reviews the remaining battle trials, the uninjured can come join us. Recovery Girl will take care of any injuries." Though he didn't appear it, Kacchan was the most seriously hurt. Izuku was burned from his explosions, but he was still able to walk without assistance. He acknowledged that he felt more sore than ever before, but nothing was broken. But as they were leaving, Kacchan was limping and even refused assistance from anyone to walk. It was obvious that he was having trouble not holding his ribs. In addition to the bruises that were already showing up on his old childhood friend's arms and face, Izuku was certain that he had broken at least 4 of them. "Kacchan, I got you good," Izuku concluded. "I can tell you're having trouble breathing. Just let someone help you, or you'll end up worse." "Fuck." You, Kachan said with a scowl before coughing up blood as they encountered Recovery Girl. Kachan was in worse shape, so Recovery Girl went to him first. Oh dear, you boys really went wild on each other, she said. As his body healed, he clicked his tongue in response to her kiss on his cheek but remained silent. After she offered him some candy and said, "Here, son, you need some energy," he took them and mutely said, "Thank you. It seems we have a habit of meeting up like this. I'm starting to think you're seriously accident-prone," she said after giving Izuku a kiss. The four heroes in training went to watch the other students, and Izuku said, "Sorry, I don't mean for this to happen," before giving him some candy. Todoroki and Shoji left, and Todoroki instantly froze the entire building they were in, defeating the Ojiro and Hagakure team on his own. Then, as if it were nothing, he entered and grabbed the weapon. It was more of a battle between Tokiyami and Asui and Kirishima and Sero, but the heroes ultimately prevailed because Tokiyami's dark shadow arrived at the weapon before the allotted time had passed. But Kaminari and Jiro versus Yaoyorozu and Freeman was another story. Freeman and Yaoyorozu had used Yaoyorozu's quirk to create steel beams that barred the door to the room where the weapon was kept. The girls were a floor below them, so Jiro had Kaminari blast the floor to startle them when she realized this. However, Yaoyorozu was ready and had made rubber soles for her and Freeman to wear, which prevented them from being shocked along with the American werewolf girl. Then, using her werewolf strength, Freeman crashed through the floor, capturing both Kaminari and Jiro before they could react. Kaminari was kicked hard in the gut, and Jiro was taped. That round was won by the villains. The villain team was completely defeated in the final battle between Aoyama and Ishido and Sato and Koda. Aoyama burst through the door, and Ishido used a slippery acid to slide around the floor and reach the weapon before the villains could react. Good job everyone, the battle trials went over well. You all showed us what you're made of, and I'm sure you've learned where you can improve. Now, this is how a hero heads off. Ahahaha. All Might exclaimed as he zipped off, leaving a trail of air gusts behind him. Until they were about to depart, the remainder of the day wasn't nearly as noteworthy. Still bitter over his loss, Kachan shoved Asui aside as they walked out of the school. Izuku ran over and asked Asui, "Are you alright, Asui-san?" After yelling, "Kachan, knock it off, or I'll tell the teachers about this." "I'm fine," she replied, "and I told you to call me Su-chan, Kiro." Izuku helped her up and said, "I'm sorry about him. Are you sure you're fine, Asu-chan?" The words, "I'm not that fragile, Midoriya," were spoken by Suyu. "Yeah, you did pretty great in the battle trials," she replied. "See you later." Suyu said, "Later," and waved her off. When Izuku left the school, he felt more assured than ever. He could sense that everything was changing for him now. Izuku started the day following the battle trial as usual, but he was taken aback by how hard his father was training with him. "Afraid I'm catching up with you?" Izuku asked him, then smirked arrogantly. "What's wrong, Dad?" He was bench pressing 275 kilograms and grunting. "Things are getting dangerous, son," as he pushed his barbell higher. "All Might isn't as publica as he used to be. I've seen the signs of the rest of us heroes need to step up or a game." He finished his sets and removed 25 kilograms of weight so Izuku could use it. As he prepared, Izuku questioned, "You think it's because he gave me his quirk?" "Probably," Hisashi admitted with a sigh. "I don't know how it works, but the way he acted, he was already approaching his last legs. That's the most likely reason he isn't making as many public appearances. He needs to save his strength for when it truly matters. You need to step up your game soon, Izuku." Izuku grunted as he carried on with his own workouts, concentrating on building up his body to be able to follow All Might's lead. He learned the hard way that he still had a long way to go from his battle with Kachan. He could have won with more time, but it took too long. Izuku needed to catch up to All Might, who always ended his fights in a minute, if not seconds. However, school was a nightmare. Reporters surrounded the school. "What's it like to learn under All Might? What's he like as a teacher? How are things in UA High School?" Reporters asked the students all of these questions and dozens more. Izuku was so overcome by the attention that he could only mumble a few answers, and the same was true for his classmates, until Aizawa-sensei and Present Mike showed up to lead them into the school. After all of the students were on the property, there was a loud clanging sound as the security shields came into action, preventing anyone from entering the building. "It's now time for something important you need to do." Aizawa-sensei's announcement upon entering the school startled Izuku and his classmates. "No more battle trial," their teacher said. "It's time for you to decide your class reps." Oh good, a typical school activity. Everyone dreaded the idea of taking such a demanding test again. Iida immediately got up and said, "We should decide this fairly. We should have a vote for who we decide should be our class representative and vice representative. Those with the most votes should be our representatives." Izuku and Ochako said, "Right," and the rest of the class did too. Everyone spent the next few minutes determining who they would vote for. After everything that had transpired, Izuku felt confident enough to vote for himself, even though he didn't anticipate winning. Iida recorded the outcomes on the board after all the votes were cast. Ultimately, Izuku received 3 votes to become the new class representative, and Yayorozu Momo received 2 votes to become the vice class representative. An angry Kacchan screamed, "What, nothing? Who the hell voted for Deku?" But nearly everyone chose to ignore him. "Huh?" Izuku asked, astonished to see that he had won. He then turned to face Ochako and Iida, understood why he had won, and grinned at his companions. He wondered who else had voted for Yayorozu, since almost everyone else had voted for themselves. But since he was asked to give a speech, this could wait. "Well, the people have spoken. I'm going to do the best job I can as the new class representative. That's all I have to say, Yayorozu," Izuku said after swallowing as he and Yayorozu made their way to the front of the class. Yayorozu Momo followed by saying, "I promise to do everything I can as your vice class representative to help our newly elected representative fulfill his duties and make sure everything runs smoothly for us. That's really all that needs to be said." After this, a typical school day began. Izuku did not experience anything particularly unusual. He felt as though Kacchan was staring at him with daggers the entire time, but he decided not to respond. He needed to project a positive image because he was now the class representative. But just as they were all finishing their lunch, things started to go haywire. Everyone began a mad dash for the exits as the intruder alarms went off. Izuku strained as he and the others jostled about, but he noticed reporters were still outside when he peered out a window. In an attempt to get their attention, he yelled, "Everyone, there's no need to panic. The reporters outside must have tripped the alarm somehow." But he was ignored as he began to walk away. "Iida!" Izuku exclaimed at last, suddenly having a thought. "Someone needs to get their attention somehow. There's nothing to be worried about. The reporters tripped the alarm somehow," Izuku said as Iida approached him. "I can send one of you higher up to get everyone's attention," Ochako said as she approached the taller boys. Iida said, "I'll go," and he and Ochako were able to approach close enough for her to lay her zero-gravity quirk on him. Then Iida jerked up the legs of his pants and launched himself straight for the wall above the exit. He was unable to control it, so he struck it directly and struck a pose resembling an emergency exit stick figure. At least he was able to attract everyone's attention. Iida shouted, "Everyone listen to me," and everyone paused to look at him. "There's no reason to be alarmed. The reporters outside accidentally activated the alarms. There is no reason to panic." Nothing particularly noteworthy happened in class after this excitement, though Izuku was informed that he would have to stay a little later to perform some class representative duties. The students in the hallway stopped panicking, and after a few minutes, the alarms stopped working. Principal Nezu said over the loudspeakers, "This was an accidental alarm caused by outside reporters. There is no reason for panic among the students. You may all return to your classrooms in a safe and orderly manner." At the end of the regular schedule, he informed his parents by phone. After finishing this, he went to meet Yayorozu outside of their classroom. She questioned him, "Do you have everything you need?" He said, "What do I need?" She said, "Just a pen or pencil and a notebook for notes," before raising her hands and creating these objects with her creation quirk. Izuku said, "Thanks a lot, Yayorozu-san," as he took them. They were walking down the hall together. He admitted, "I've never really done anything like this before. I was always the kid that was picked last in elementary and middle school. I'm honestly surprised you didn't win. You're so smart and got such a great quirk and all." He sighed, "Unfortunately, I haven't really had much chance to show that. My quirk is a lot more difficult than it looks. I need to know the molecular structure of the objects I create, and they're made using my body fat. If I overuse it I can seriously harm my body. Kind of like overexertion or working out too hard without any rest," Izuku explained. Yayorozu remarked, "Something like that," as they reached Principal Nezu's office. The principal and Aizawa-sensei were waiting for them inside. "Good to see you," said the principal. "I'm just here to let you know what your responsibilities will be as the class rep and vice class representative. It shouldn't take too much of your time." For about an hour, Izuku and Yayorozu were briefed by the principal and Aizawa-sensei on their responsibilities with the other students, particularly monitoring them to ensure that any issues were reported to the teachers. Izuku felt compelled to inform them about Bakugo Katsuki and the impact his demeanor was having on the other students during this conversation, and Yaoyorozu wholeheartedly concurred. Yaoyorozu added that Marie Freeman had used her quirk to seal the hole between the locker rooms where she had been spying on the boys. Nezu simply nodded and replied, "It's good to see you are both on top of things already. I will speak with both Bakugo and Freeman to make sure these incidents don't happen. That is all for today." Izuku questioned Yaoyorozu after they had left, what all did Freeman-san say about what she saw? After blushing, Yaoyorozu remarked, "She was talking about your muscles and she said something about you in particular." "I don't think I need to hear any more about it, I think I know what she was talking about," Izuku said, blushing at the sound of that. Yaoyorozu stopped herself just in time, and Izuku became curious. "You mean you're really Hua?" After swallowing, he repeated, "Jay, just tell me what she said." Fortunately, no one was nearby to hear Yaoyorozu's blushing request for him to approach. In Izuku's ear, she whispered, "She said you're the biggest boy in class down there." Izuku flushed, feeling a range of emotions. Yaoyorozu, attempting to avoid looking down, remarked, "She was clearly exaggerating, spreading her arms way too wide, but then she brought them closer. I'm sure she was just playing a prank on us." Izuku said, "Why yeah," attempting to suppress the thought of the reaction of the girls in the class. Although he wasn't the type to boast, he was fairly certain that he was above average, at least in some body parts, if his father was any guide. "Anyway," she said as they walked out of the school, "I'll be leaving because my maid should be here with the limousine." Izuku remarked, "Yeah, my dad should be here any minute, if he's not here now," as they arrived at the main entrance. A purple-haired maid with big round glasses was standing in front of a white limousine outside, and his father was indeed there in his typical off-work suit. The maid said, "I am here to pick you up today, young mistress." Yaoyorozu turned to Izuku's father and asked, "Are you Midoriya-kun's father?" "Just as expected, Roberta," he said. Hisashi introduced himself, saying, "Yes, I am Midoriya Hisashi, Missa." Yaoyorozu Momo, "Midoriya-san. It's nice to meet you." Yaoyorozu bowed. Izuku blushed and turned away as Hisashi bowed back and winked at him. "Midoriya-san, if it's not too much trouble, could I drop you off at your home?" replied Yaoyorozu. Hisashi gave her the address and asked, "Is it out of your way?" Roberta, the maid, remarked, "Young mistress, that is just a small diversion." "Then please, let me take you home, Midoriya-san," demanded Yaoyorozu. After saying, "Thanks," Hisashi and Izuku boarded a limousine with Yaoyorozu and her maid. The two teenagers discussed their day with Hisashi along the way, outlining Izuku's new role as the class representative and their new responsibilities. With a nod in agreement, Hisashi remarked reflectively, "Well, this sounds like good experience for being a hero. Organization is important for setting up an agency. Plus, you might need to organize civilians to help them evacuate while you hold off a villain." "Oh yes, I remember Midoriya-kun said that you were a hero, sir," Yaoyorozu replied. "Do you have a way of contacting Phoenix, so I can thank him for rescuing my father?" After giving it some thought, Izuku immediately connected the dots and recalled how his father had been working on a kidnapping case. He wondered if his father would tell her as he glanced at him. With a flawless poker face, Hisashi said, "I can tell him, certainly. Is there anything in particular you'd like to say to him?" He didn't appear arrogant or self-aggrandizing at all, just as though he was prepared to deliver a message to a colleague. "Can you tell him, from me, thank you for bringing father back safe. Mother and I were terrified when we heard he was kidnapped, and we're all relieved that he's home," she said with the greatest sincerity. "Yaoyorozu-chan, I'll let him know," Hisashi said, nodding. Izuku questioned her, "Why didn't you say anything about your dad being kidnapped?" "Mother said we couldn't let people know. As you can guess by now, my family is very wealthy. And I've been taught since I was very little that I need to present an image to the world. I learned early how to react if I was taken hostage, although that was never necessary for me to use that knowledge. It's part of why I want to be a hero, to keep people safe from such villains," Yaoyorozu continued. When the limo pulled up to the Midoriya home, Hisashi grinned and said, "Understandable, and very laudable." As Roberta drove the limo away, Hisashi and Izuku exited and waved goodbye. "Why didn't you tell her?" Izuku asked his father. Hisashi smiled at Izuku and said, "Tell me, son, would you rather have her liking you for you, or because your dad saved her dad? I just think people should know who you are before they know who I am. I'd say you're turning into a bit of a lady killer, aren't you?" As they went inside for a hurried training session and a late dinner, Izuku flushed and they remained silent. Izuku had an odd dream later that night. In his vision, He saw a woman wearing a cape, white boots, yellow gloves, and a dark purple sleeveless jumpsuit. She had black hair and eyes and was obviously very beautiful and muscular. Looking at Izuku, the woman grinned and remarked, "I hope Toshinori will be able to help you in your journey." Izuku was troubled by his dream when he woke up. He had a clear memory of the woman. She was undoubtedly the outspoken type, but he was certain that he had never met anyone like her. The woman in his dream had the same hairstyle as his mother, who was the closest person he could think of. In addition to being more muscular than Maki, this woman was more attractive than she was, and she had a beauty mark on the lower right corner of her lips. She was unlike any woman Izuku had ever seen, and he was aware of many female and male heroes. Who was Toshinori, anyway? As they worked out, his father noticed that he was preoccupied with thoughts of the woman. "What's on your mind, son? Girl trouble?" Hisashi asked him after they were finished. "Nothing like that," Izuku replied. "I had a dream last night, about a woman. One I'd never seen before, I'm sure." The comment, "Sounds like teen hormones," made Hisashi laugh. Izuku said to him, "Dad, I'm being serious. It's weird, she was someone important, I think," before speaking about the woman. Taking everything more seriously, Hisashi nodded in agreement before posing the question, "Did she do or say anything to you?" "She said to me, 'I hope Toshinori will be able to help you in your journey.' I have no idea who that is," Izuku said to him. "I think she's connected to All Might," Hisashi stated. "I was a sidekick with an old hero named Gran Torino. That man put me through hell. It was the second worst time of my life, compared to my life with my father. But Gran Torino had a lot of experience, and he did help make me stronger in the long run. He even showed me how to fly with my jetpack. He helped mentor All Might a long time ago, and I heard him call him Toshinori when he referred to him. Maybe he knows who she is." Then Izuku noticed something unexpected. His father was shaking. Izuku said, "What's with you, Dad?" "I just had some unpleasant memories with Gran Torino," Hisashi said, fighting to contain his shaking. "That man was one of the hardest people I ever met. If he's still alive, it proves the old proverb that only the good die young is right." Izuku questioned, "You never kept in touch with him?" "We weren't really close," Hisashi stated as he calmed down his shaking. "Even though he helped train me, we never got along. The fact that he let me be a hero after only a year was at least partly because he said he had nothing left to teach me. I was honestly happy to get away from him." That was not the same. The symbol of unity was a nickname given to Hisashi because he got along with almost everyone, regardless of their background or identity. It was strange to learn that he didn't get along with someone. Izuku was resolved to try to see All Might whenever he could after they wrapped up the day and left for UA after getting off the train. He ran to the school and used 5% of 1 for All's power to accelerate his pace even further in order to arrive there before his class. He made his way to the faculty offices and took a look about. He saw the slender figure of All Might at his desk. All Might informed him, "Midoriya Shonen, you're at school early," and Izuku saw how worn out he appeared. Izuku asked him, "Are you all right, All Might?" "I took a few detours on my way to the school today. Unfortunately, I used up my time with 1 for All for today," All Might said. "It was planned I would supervise the students, but I can't do that now until near the end of the hero course lesson." Izuku confessed, "Is it because you gave the power to me?" "Afraid so," said All Might, "but don't let it bother you. My time was going lower and lower. Anyway, you're not here for a talk about me, I suppose. What's wrong?" Izuku replied, "Yes, actually. I had a dream about a woman. She was some kind of hero, I think. She was dressed like one at least. She was very beautiful with dark hair and eyes, and a mole here on her face," Izuku said as he pointed to the spot. "She was muscular, and had a dark purple sleeveless jumpsuit with yellow gloves and white boots and a cape. Oh, and her hair was styled like my mom's. And she said something to me. 'I hope Toshinori will be able to help you in your journey.' I asked my dad about her, and he said Toshinori was your name." All Might's sunken eyes got bigger and bigger as Izuku spoke. "Midoriya Shonen, have you ever heard the name, Shimura Nana?" "No, I haven't. Is that the woman's name?" Izuku shook his head. The Mighty replied, "Yes, Shimura Nana was my mentor. She was the one who gave me 1 for All. Her hero name was Glider." "I've never heard of her, sorry," declared Izuku. The Mighty nodded. Times were different back then. Still, this is something unexpected. I had dreams of other people when I first received 1 for All, but they faded in time. And here you are, having a dream of a woman you never even heard of. Do you have any idea why this is happening?" Izuku responded, "I've had other dreams, heard voices, most of them men. And I think one of the voices was also Shimura Nana, your mentor's voice as well." The mighty placed his bony hand on his pointed chin and replied, "That is something. We'll hold back and wait for any future developments. I'll try to see what I can dig up about the previous users of One for All. Meanwhile, Midoriya Shonen, you should head to class. It's going to start soon." After saying, "Right, see you later, All Might," Izuku hurried back to class 1A, but he was barely there when the first bell rang. Iida reprimanded him, saying, "Midoriya-kun, this is no way for a class representative to act. You were nearly late." "Sorry, Iida," Izuku responded. "I needed to consult with All Might about a things." "I understand," Iida replied. "But you still need to take your responsibilities seriously. You have an important job to present an example to everyone." Izuku said, "Understood," and Aizawa-sensei came in. "Everyone, get your costumes on. Today, we're having another special lesson in rescue operations," announced Aizawa-sensei. Everyone went back to the locker rooms to change after the robot arms with their costumes emerged. Izuku had to wear the gym uniform with gloves after realizing his costume was destroyed inside the locker rooms. Izuku remarked, "Well, this sucks," while considering his outfit. "Where's your costume?" Kaminari Denki asked him. "What's wrong?" "My costume was too damaged from the battle trial," Izuku stated as they left. "I have to use this for now. It sucks because my mom made me that costume. She's a really good tailor too. I can only guess how long it took her to make it. I was hoping it would last longer." "That's real tough, man," Kaminari replied. "But, hey, maybe the support course can make a new, better one. I'm sure your mom will understand." Izuku replied, "Yeah," and the group, along with Aizawa-sensei, rode a robot-driven bus to their destination. It was a huge structure that appeared to be large enough to house a whole theme park. "Man, I can't believe we actually made it," said Kirishima Eijiro. "That battle trial was tough, but real manly. Especially you, Midoriya. You really put up a good fight." "Not enough to win, we only won thanks to Ochako," Izuku informed him. "You were pretty manly too, Uraraka," Kirishima said, grinning. Kachan shouted, "Shut up. You're not all that heroic, are you, Bakugo?" Asui Suyu responded, "Your attitude is more like a villain's." Her response was, "Can it French cuisine?" Bakugo shouted back. "See?" asked Asui. "Yeah," Kaminari said, "you do have a personality that is like garbage mixed with raw sewage." After that, Kachan screamed at him, "You ready to die, punk?" This is the total opposite of what school used to be. Izuku came to the realization that people genuinely like me, while they dislike Kachan. As he noticed the distant expression on his face, Yaoyorozu asked, "Are you alright, Midoriya-kun?" "I'm fine, really. I was just thinking about the past is all. I was never really popular before. Kachan was always the more popular guy because of his quirk, and mine didn't really show until near the end of middle school. And I still don't really have a handle on its full power. I can only use about 30% of it safely, and even then, if I use it too long it really hurts me," Izuku said. Marie Freeman remarked, "That sounds rough," and Izuku had a chance to see her outfit. The American girl was dressed in knee-length shorts, a dark gray sports bra-like top, and shoes that were easy to put on. She went on, "I kind of understand what you're going through. My quirk lets me transform into a werewolf form, and I have another ultimate form as well. Problem is, after I use the ultimate form, I can only hold it for 2 minutes max. After that, I can't even move for an hour." After giving a nod, Izuku took out his notebook and began taking notes. Shirohanta asked, "Do you always do that?" "Yeah," Izuku replied. "I love learning about quirks. You never know what you might find out. It can also help you devise strategies if you have to work with people." "We have arrived," the robotic driver said, interrupting the students' conversations. When the bus came to a stop, they went inside. They were astounded by how much of a miniature world it appeared to be, seeing all the different settings and structures inside. And a figure dressed like a big astronaut stood in front of everything. Ochako exclaimed, "Oh wow! It's the Space Hero 13, with excitement." "Welcome everyone," 13 shouted. "This is place where you will be training for rescue missions. In here we have mock-ups and models of every environment you could face as heroes. From cities to mountains to rivers and fires, we have everything here. Hence this place is known as the Unforeseen Simulation Joint Facility. Japan's version of Universal Studios." Ochako, Iida, and Izuku all pondered. 13 exclaimed, "Now then, everyone line up so we can decide your area and who you'll be teaming up with to start the rescue trial." However, a big, dark cloud materialized in the center of the USJ behind her. "What's that?" asked Kirishima. Ojiro questioned, is the trial already started? As he approached 13, Aizawa-sensei remarked, this isn't part of your training. Tell her to call backup, he said. My signal is jammed, she informed him in a low voice. As they spoke, a large group of people, all of whom appeared to be villains prepared for battle, came out of the black cloud. A slender, white-haired man with severed hands, one on his face, another on the back of his head, and more on his arms, and a huge, black, hulking creature with a bare brain, a bird-like beak, and blank eyes were the two that stood out the most. When Izuku saw the enormous monster, he remembered the one his father had faced in the Arctic years before. It made his spine tingle. The black cloud, which had glowing yellow eyes and was dressed in a suit, said, Shigaraki Tamura, we are finished bringing our comrades, as it formed a body. I don't see All Might anywhere, Kurogiri. Shigaraki Tamura, the man with the hands over his head, said as he began to scratch his neck. I suppose if we start killing some students, that will force him to appear. Everyone, stay here, Aizawa-sensei exclaimed, removing his scarf and donning his golden goggles. Then he dashed in the direction of the villains. Marie screamed, let's go. But 13-sensei interrupted, saying, no, if you go, you'll only get in Eraserhead's way. We'll hold them off, whoever is the fastest, you need to run out and alert the other teachers. Iida held up a hand and shouted, I will go, as Izuku shouted, hurry, Iida. The armored teenager sprinted to the door. The black cloud, Kurogiri, suddenly materialized before him and said, you are not going anywhere. 13-sensei ran over to Kurogiri and yelled, leave him alone. While pointing a finger, it appeared as though Kurogiri was being drawn into 13 when one of her glove tips flipped open. I see, Kurogiri said with no concern, your quirk is quite powerful, 13, but I recall that you are more used to rescue missions than combat. 13 screamed as her own quirk was used against her, and then more of the dark cloud stuff that Kurogiri appeared to be composed of materialized behind her. She halted her assault and collapsed as the back of her suit was torn. Everyone shouted, 13, as they rushed to their teacher who had fallen. As he charged at Kurogiri, Bakugo roared, that's it, time for this fucker to die. Izuku and a few other students ran toward the villain, only to be engulfed in darkness. You all could be troublesome. So, I will allow the others a chance to deal with you, said Kurogiri. Izuku was falling from the sky and landing directly into a lake the next thing he knew. After falling deeply, he saw a villain of the aquatic type swimming straight at him, his teeth resembling those of a piranha. At 30%, Izuku concentrated and called forth full cowling. The water was slowing him down for crucial microseconds, so he nearly missed his kick attempt and struck the villain in the chest rather than the head. He noticed that he was surrounded when he looked around. Izuku attempted to swim away as a number of villains swam straight at him. He wasn't made for swimming, despite his strength, and he hadn't had much time to catch his breath. The villains were approaching, but just as one lunged forward to bite him, a long tongue encircled him and dragged him out of the water. He heard Tsuyu exclaim, I got him, as he noticed her scaling a boat in the lake. Marie was waving at him as Tsuyu climbed on and carefully allowed Izuku to board the boat. Ahoy, he exclaimed. Izuku inquired, where are we? After realizing they were encircled. Like we say back home, Marie said grimly, we're up shit creek without a paddle. Marie was correct. They were in serious trouble, as Izuku could see by looking around the boat. He could see Aizawa-sensei fighting the villains on land in the distance. He was giving it everything he had, and his superior skill prevented them from touching him. Izuku, however, also noticed that his teacher was growing weary because he was greatly outnumbered. We need to get out of here and help Aizawa-sensei, Izuku stated. At that moment, two of the water-based villains leapt out to attempt to board the boat. Marie and Izuku leapt to their feet and kicked them back into the water. You got any ideas? If this was on land, I could take half these punks no problem. But the water slows me down too much. I can hold my breath for about 5 minutes, but those guys could still drown me, Marie stated to him. All right, we need to come up with a plan. Su-chan, Marie, we need to talk about our quirks to see what we can do, Izuku responded. Then came Tsuyu. My quirk is called Frog. I can basically do whatever a frog can, Kiro. I can crawl on walls, extend my tongue up to 20 meters, swim really fast, and jump roughly 60 meters. I can secrete a mucus that causes mild irritation, plus I can vomit out my stomach to clean it, but that's not really useful here. Marie followed by saying, my quirk is lycanthrope. I'm basically a werewolf. I have heightened hearing and smell, and when I transform it's even better. Transformed my strength is multiplied by 10, and I have claws and fangs that can tear through steel. I can also turn into an ultimate form which makes me 50 times stronger than my base form, plus I grow 50 pounds, or 23 kilograms heavier with muscle and 6 inches taller, about 15 centimeters. Unfortunately, I can only use it for 2 minutes, after that I return to my base form and can't move for an hour. Plus in my ultimate form my head turns into a wolf's head, and I go wilder. I can't talk in that form and I might hurt people if I'm not familiar with them. Izuku then said, my quirk is called superpower. It generates extreme energy over time that I can release in power and speed. However, going 100% breaks my limbs, so I can only use 30% of my full power right now. If I use it too long, it exhausts my body as well. After Marie said, I think we can all get on land if we try, another villain leapt to the sky. With violet fur covering her body, Marie changed into her werewolf form, turning her teeth into fangs and her nails into claws. The problem is that those guys might jump us like a shark getting a seal, she said, leaping to her feet and axe-kicking the villain back into the water before landing back on the boat. Izuku was thinking about it and said, I got an idea. It's risky, but it should get us on land at least. I'll harness 100% of my power into a finger and flick the water. It might cause the water to swirl around and cause a vortex, distracting the villains. Suyu, you'll get us on land, and if anyone tries to attack us, me and Marie will deal with them with our legs. Won't that break your finger though? Marie responded, that could seriously hamper you if we need to fight. I've broken my own fingers training, so I know how much that hurts. We don't have much choice I think, Izuku remarked, and then they heard a loud crash coming from the USJ's center. In order to attack Shigaraki Tamura, the apparent leader of the villains, Aizawa-sensei had slammed a rock monster-type villain into the ground alongside a number of other villains. Shigaraki caught his elbow as he charged at him, preparing to finish him with an elbow to the sternum. The students noticed that Aizawa's elbow and shirt sleeve were partially broken. Oh shit! Marie exclaimed, that freak with the hands has some kind of disintegrating power. This is bad, if we face him, we can't let him touch us, there's something else too. Suyu said, what is it, Marie-chan? Marie took in, I thought I was going crazy, but in my werewolf form I'm sure of it now. That big guy with the beak, he's not human. It smells like he's a combination of multiple people, dead people. It's like it's some kind of Frankenstein's monster. Whispering, that's impossible, Izuku said. I know, Marie responded, but it doesn't change the fact that that's what I'm smelling. My nose is never wrong. That thinga, it's real bad news. They were cut short when a villain in the water launched a powerful attack that split the boat in two. Suyu wrapped Izuku in her tongue and said, there's no time to talk, let's do Midoriya's plan. Marie then grabbed hold of the frog girl. Izuku directed his strength in his right middle finger and flicked at the water as Suyu leapt powerfully out of the sinking boat. Gallons of water were launched skyward by the attack's tremendous air blast before descending and creating a whirlpool. Izuku grunted and gritted his teeth in pain, but he kept his attention on the work at hand. Marie cried out, incoming, as a villain who appeared to be a big man in a skull mask jumped out of the water toward them. Izuku sent villain back down by concentrating 30% of his power and slamming his heel into the skull mask covering his face. Suyu released Izuku after they made a safe landing on dry land. A broken finger hurt so much that he grabbed his wrist. Focus guys, Marie said, dragging him and Suyu away from the shore. Some of those punks are coming for us now, she said. Izuku created a vortex, but several of the aquatic villains were able to escape and emerged from the water to attack the three students. Izuku rallied and battled through the agony, pursuing Marie to launch an assault on the villains. Marie quickly demonstrated her abilities by avoiding the villains' blows with ease and retaliating with forceful kicks and palm strikes. She loudly cracked bones with each blow. Izuku knocked out multiple villains by punching and kicking them hard in the stomach without using his injured hand. Even Suyu engaged in combat, swiftly eliminating 4 villains with forceful kicks to the head. Izuku turned to see that Aizawa-sensei had been captured by the giant monster, who was hammering his face into the ground and had already broken his other arm and leg. Sensei! Marie exclaimed as she underwent yet another transformation, growing 15 centimeters taller and gaining muscle as she went. Her mouth and nose lengthened and joined to form a wolf-like snout, and her feet changed into a wolf's hind legs. Marie screamed as she rushed the monster, slitting its arms and making it release their teacher. When the wounds on the creature's chest healed, Marie turned and was about to claw it, but instead it struck her face with a strong fist. Izuku was horrified to see that Marie had returned to her normal form after being knocked out in a single blow after being sent flying away. Suyu shouted, Marie, as she leapt after her companion. Izuku, meanwhile, realized he couldn't afford to hold back after witnessing the monster's strength. Detroit Smash, he cried, directing his power into his right arm and slamming his fist into the monster's face, forcing it to look in his direction. Otherwise, though, it was unaffected. Disregarding his discomfort, Izuku delivered another forceful blow to its throat while shouting, "Detroit Smash!" The monster retreated a single step, and Izuku leapt back, ready to take a very dangerous action. "Give up, kid," said Shigaraki Tamura. "Nomu was given all the best quirks we could give him. He was designed specifically to kill All Might. You don't have the power to defeat him." Izuku glared at the man, noticing that he had white hair and that one of Shigaraki's red eyes was visible through the hand's fingers on his face. Izuku ignored the fact that it appeared familiar in favor of concentrating on Nomu. Izuku ran at the monster as it roared and ran faster than he believed it could. Then, yelling, "Smash!" he leapt at it, concentrating his strength in his legs as he hammered his feet into its solar plexus. Izuku landed with all of his limbs broken, and Nomu was knocked back a few meters but otherwise unharmed. "Did Asashi teach you that?" Shigaraki asked, glancing down at Izuku. "What heroic nonsense." Izuku found it difficult to raise his gaze to Shigaraki's face when his father's name was mentioned. Through the pain, he grunted, "How do you know my dad?" Izuku noticed that Tsuyu was attempting to protect Marie as Shigaraki walked past him and said, "I know everything there is to know about him. Including things he doesn't even know about himself, Midoriya Izuku. But right now, just stay there like a good boy. I have something to do." "Tsuyu run!" exclaimed Izuku. The idea of witnessing her breakdown sent a shockwave through his body unlike anything he had ever experienced. The thought of her dying frightened him. As Shigaraki drew closer, Tsuyu was too terrified to flee. Despite Shigaraki's attempts to touch her, Izuku screamed, "Tsuyu!" and attempted to shield her unconscious companion. Shigaraki grabbed Tsuyu's face, but nothing happened. "What a shame," Shigaraki said, "to go through so much effort and still lose." "Eraserhead," Shigaraki remarked, "you really are cool." Izuku turned to face his teacher. Aizawa-sensei was able to save Tsuyu's life by glaring at Shigaraki and erasing his quirk, even though he had broken both arms and one leg and had blood streaming down his face from wounds on his head. The USJ's doors suddenly exploded inward, and All Might, whose voice trembled with righteous rage at the sight of the students' peril, yelled, "Fear not, students. For I am here." He also had a furious expression. Shigaraki hissed, "All Might," upon seeing the symbol of peace, the #1 hero. All Might was in the midst of the battle in an instant. He simply moved without wasting any words. As he moved more quickly than the typical human could see, he almost seemed to disappear. The next thing Izuku knew, all of the villains who were still standing in the center of the USJ were on the ground, having been knocked out by All Might's blows. When All Might stopped, Izuku screamed, "All Might! Watch out for that big guy. He has some sort of healing quirk, and my punches and kicks hardly touched him." As he charged directly at Shigaraki, All Might exclaimed, "Midoriya Shonen, stay there." Nomu took Shigaraki's place after he was able to leap away from Tsuyu and the still unconscious Marie. The monster stared blankly at All Might after he delivered a forceful punch to the chest. "You can't win, All Might," Shigaraki replied. "We gave him a shock absorption quirk, he can take anything you can throw at him." "We'll see about that." All Might grunted and got ready to fight Nomu, but as Nomu charged him, the black clouds of Kurogiri appeared. Nomu clutched All Might's wounded side and held onto his body. As All Might was forced into the shadowy cloud and his upper half appeared in a different cloud, he let out a painful grunt. Izuku said, "Oh no," as he became aware of what was happening and the vision of Kurogiri's portal slicing All Might in two. However, All Might found it difficult to defeat Nomu and was unable to defeat both villains. Izuku thought his worst nightmare would come true as the portals with All Might shrank, but then he saw Nomu covered in ice. As Nomu was covered in ice, All Might took advantage of the situation and swiftly retreated. All Might shifted and leapt away from Kurogiri's portals, shattering Nomu's arm. Todoroki, Izuku, Kacchan, and Kirishima all exclaimed with relief upon seeing him. With a shout of, "I got you now, you smoky bastard," Kacchan charged into Kurogiri and threw him to the ground. He had his hands over a metal collar of some sort and was over him. "Just like I thought," Kacchan replied, "you had to have a body beneath all that smoke. I guess if I bust this open, something really nasty would happen to you, huh?" "All right," Kirishima exclaimed, "let's defeat these men now." They're too dangerous for you to handle. All Might urged them to stay back. Todoroki said, Midoriya, what happened to you? That big guy, Izuku said. They saw Nomu get to his feet, breaking his frozen limbs, only to have them grow back in a matter of seconds. The words, Nomu, kill All Might, were hissed by Shigaraki. With a roar, the monster charged at All Might, preparing a strong blow. They clashed together after All Might delivered an equally powerful blow. The students, Kurogiri, and Shigaraki were knocked back by windstorms caused by the force of the blows. Izuku screamed in agony as Kirishima moved his fractured limbs while grabbing him. Kirishima said, sorry, man, while All Might and Nomu kept fighting. Izuku saw everything because he felt compelled to see this conflict. Just give up, weren't you listening? Nomu has shock absorption and healing. Even with your full power you can't defeat him, Shigaraki exclaimed. He claimed that your quirk was only shock absorption and not nullification, which implies that there is a limit to how much you can take. Yeah, so what? All Might grunted, and it appeared that his punches became stronger and faster. So, big guy, you were created to fight me? I simply need to push myself past my limits if I can't beat you with everything I have, and command you give up. The students all witnessed All Might pushing the monster away and advancing as Nomu and All Might's arms turned into twin blurs as they delivered blows more quickly than a normal human could follow. After grabbing Nomu and throwing him into the air, All Might leapt to his feet and tackled him to the ground below, causing the land to tremble like ocean waves. Kirishima and Izuku were separated, but Izuku remained focused on the battle, making sure that every blow he delivered hurt him. All Might kept hitting Nomu with strong blows, and the creature was barely able to react to the sheer force of All Might's blows. All Might said, now for a lesson, as he flung Nomu to the ground once more. You may have heard these words before, but I'll show you what they truly mean. All Might clenched his right fist, and it began to glow with power as he roared with an almighty voice, go beyond. Moreover, Ultra. With the force of a ballistic missile, All Might's fist struck Nomu's stomach, causing the ground around them to shatter even more. Nomu was flung into the air, and it struck the USJ's ceiling before its body tore through it like tissue paper, sending the creature hurtling into the distance. My goodness! He knocked the shock absorption right out of him. Kirishima shouted. That level of physical strength is unheard of. To have power like that, Kachan replied, he must have been punching that monster faster than it could regenerate. Izuku said, he did it while gazing at All Might. All Might stood up and clenched a victorious fist, saying, that guy was tougher than I thought, as his breathing became more labored. In my prime, 5 hits would have been enough to knock that guy out, but today it took more than 300 mighty blows. As Izuku opened his mouth to smile, All Might's body began to emit white smoke. Shigaraki ran at All Might, and Izuku forced his broken right arm to move as he focused his power and punched at Shigaraki. Oh no, Izuku thought, realizing that All Might had pushed himself too hard and was about to deflate in front of everyone. He then saw Shigaraki glare at All Might, his hatred almost palpable. All Might was now defenseless, struggling to maintain his muscular form, and Izuku knew that if Shigaraki touched him now, he would definitely kill him. Shigaraki was knocked back and away from All Might by the sheer force of his attack, and then he was hit by bullets to the arms and legs. Izuku noticed that the other UA teachers had finally arrived. Snipe provided cover while Midnight and Present Mike knocked out the first villains who attempted to fight. Recovery Girl took care of 13 while Ectoplasm and Cementos drove the villains away from the students and All Might. Before long, all of the villains who weren't vanquished by All Might or the students were being quickly taken prisoner. This isn't over. Kurogiri wrapped Shigaraki in his dark smoke and said, All Might, I will kill you. He said, and as for you, Midoriya Izuku, your hero power is wasted, and then he vanished. How is he aware of you? Izuku was asked by All Might. I don't know, Izuku responded, but something felt familiar about him. All Might eventually deflated after Cementos swiftly constructed a cement wall to conceal him and Izuku. Thanks, Cementos. The worn-out number 1 hero spat up blood and uttered, I owe you one. No problem, sir, Cementos replied, I've been a fan of yours since I was a child. Izuku and Marie were the only students who were seriously injured when the robots with stretchers arrived. Izuku noticed that Midnight Sensei was holding Marie's hand as they left, and he thought he saw a resemblance between the two, but he dismissed it as he was leaving the USJ. Amazingly, despite everything and the risk of death, his current thought was, I should get a girlfriend. Life is too short. Because of what transpired at the USJ, the students in Class 1A were permitted to take the following day off. Izuku and Marie were cured by Recovery Girl, and Midnight stayed by the girl's side the entire time. When Inko learned that Izuku and his classmates had been attacked, she became extremely alarmed. To make matters worse, Izuku had used his broken right arm, leaving it scarred. Izuku and Hisashi were able to soothe her by explaining that it was common for heroes to sustain scars during their travels. Only after Hisashi prepared her favorite super, a roasted chicken with fried rice and vegetables, did she truly settle down that evening. Izuku asked his father a question at breakfast the following morning after working out. Dada, I have some things to talk about with those attackers. I already told the police these things, but you need to know them too, I think. Hisashi said, what is it, son? The man who led the League of Villains, Izuku replied. He seemed to know you. And his name was Shigaraki Tamura. That was your name before you married Mom, right? Hisashi stopped eating when his original surname was mentioned. What did he look like? Izuku was asked by Hisashi. He was skinny, a little bit shorter than me, Izuku stated. But he had hands all over his arms and face. But I saw one of his eyes. They were red like yours. And he had white hair too, like you. He talked about you too, by name. Could he be related to you? As he paused his meal and considered this, Hisashi inhaled deeply. Possibly, he finally replied. My father was often away. He could have had other children, but I never met them if he did. He never talked about others even once. But from what you told me, he sounds a lot younger than me as well. I already ran away when he was born, most likely. All I can say is, he might be a long-lost brother. I just don't know, son. But, if he is, then that means we need to try to help him, if we can. Izuku, Inko, and Hisako were left alone to go about their day after Hisashi left to go to work. After concentrating on his studies for a few hours, Izuku's mind drifted back to his thoughts while he was being removed from the USJ. Despite how absurd it sounded, he was actually interested in getting a girlfriend. However, he was able to name 3 women he would like to date. Uraraka Ochako showed him such kindness and cuteness. She had been very helpful to him and was his second female friend. Who could not like a girl like her? She was so strong and courageous. Yayorozu Momo was a strong contender as well. She was so calm, gorgeous, and diligent, and since she was the vice class representative, no one would mind if they spent time together. To his astonishment, Asui Suyu was also present. Despite their dire circumstances, she had shown bravery by confronting the villains at the USJ and never losing her cool. If he claimed not to have noticed that her body was also quite fit, he would be lying. Her big eyes also had a certain allure. As he lay in bed, Izuku considered each of them, trying to decide which one he wanted to ask out. Even though his mother had warned him that first loves didn't always last, he still wanted to give the girl he picked everything he had. To see if that would help him make a decision, he even pulled out a clean notebook and listed all of their advantages and disadvantages. In fact, it didn't. With a sigh, he emerged from his room to discover his mother using a small toy oven to play pretend cake baking with Hisako. Hey, Mom, can I talk to you about something? He replied. As Inko and Hisako sat down and acted as though they were eating the cake, Inko asked him, what's wrong, Izuku? I need your help with getting a girlfriend, Izuku said, blushing a little. Although he would almost rather talk to his father, he reasoned that his mother might at least have some insight into what makes a good boyfriend. Izuku sat down and Inko said, oh, and who's the girl you're interested in? As Izuku told Inko about Momo, Ochako, and Suyu, Hisako cut a piece of plastic cake, placed it on a plate, and handed it to Izuku. The 3 of them then acted as though they were at a party. Inko nodded in agreement as he told her about Momo's intelligence and grace, Ochako's kindness and fun, and Suyu's bravery and oddly endearing nature. Hisako occasionally interrupted, posing as a noblewoman offering counsel. After completing his explanation, he remarked, I'm not sure who I should ask out. They're all good, I can't decide. Inko nodded to everything and said, I think we should get your father's opinion on this before you make a decision if you really can't decide for yourself. We could all work to figure this out. Hisashi was flying high above his designated city during this time, surveying the area from above and keeping an eye out for any trouble. For him, the day had been especially busy. 7 robberies, 8 kids nearly getting hit while crossing the street, 2 elderly people who needed assistance after falling, and 1 apartment fire. The building's top 3 floors were still engulfed in flames, but he had been able to assist in evacuating those who were in danger. He believed he saw blue flames, but he was too preoccupied with saving lives to give it much thought. He kept thinking about this Shigaraki Tamura, the League of Villains leader. After he arrived at his agency, he had done what research he could, but aside from the records pertaining to the attack on the USJ, He had virtually no other records. He was unable to determine whether Tamura was, in fact, a long-lost relative based on the scant video evidence that was available. They didn't appear to be alike in appearance, but that didn't really matter. Izuku did not resemble Hisashi's son. Rather, he resembled a male Inko. The sight of a group of 4 women running Gano, sliding down the street as though their feet had wheels, jolted him out of his reverie. As they went by, they were robbing other women of their purses. Hisashi screamed, "Halt, villains! You will not escape, Phoenix," as he flew down. One of the women exclaimed, "Says you." They were all wearing black and green roller derby outfits and helmets that covered their faces, making it hard to identify them. A rope flew in Phoenix's direction as the woman in the back whipped out her hand. Taking the woman with him, he flew up after catching the rope. "Tsubaki!" shouted the other women as they turned around and grabbed her ankle, followed by another and another until Phoenix was hauling a chain of 4 women into the air. Phoenix exclaimed, "This must be my lucky day," as he flew in the direction of a park, his jetpack straining under the added weight. He flew down to the roller derby ladies and dropped them on the grass. "Surrender now, and I won't have to get rough," said Phoenix. "I don't like violence against women, but I'm not one to let villains go either, regardless of gender." The rope woman threw another rope at Phoenix, another threw another rope at him, and the final one slid behind Phoenix. "Screw you!" shouted one of the women as she opened her mouth and a rock formed in front of it, launched at Phoenix. The rope women struck their allies like flails, knocking them out as Phoenix grabbed the ropes as they wrapped around his arms and spun around. Phoenix kicked the rock into the debris before it could hit him, but the rock-mouth woman continued to launch her rock. There were no wheels, so Phoenix took the women's ropes, tied them all up, and looked down at their feet. He surmised that the woman who slid behind him had some sort of sliding quirk that allowed them to move as though they were skating. To deliver the roller derby ladies, Phoenix hoisted the women up and flew to a police station. After finishing, he let out a sigh, and his jetpack began to beep. He had to go back to his agency to charge it because the battery was almost dead. Phoenix decided to walk and save power after giving it some thought and realizing that he was only a 15-minute walk from his agency. The civilians he passed cheered and greeted him as he went. As he went, he smiled and waved courteously to them. He remained a hero to the populace regardless of the circumstances. 5 minutes from his agency, he noticed a young girl with green skin and purple hair gazing up at a tree. She was asked by Phoenix, "Is something wrong, little miss?" The young girl pointed up to a black cat with white paws perched on a branch and said, "Pocky went after a squirrel, and now he's stuck in the tree." "I'll get Pocky down," Phoenix said, looking up. He then turned on his jetpack on low power and floated up to the tree. Pocky reached out and took Phoenix's mask, looking defensive as he did so. Phoenix pulled the cat gently off the branch and floated down to the little girl, unaware of Pocky's attempt to claw his hands because his gloves and sleeves were made of thick material. "Thank you, Phoenix," the young girl said, clutching her feline. Phoenix said, "Take care, now," and waved goodbye before making his way to his agency. Upon entering, Hiromasa Madoka said to his secretary, "I've finally got the last 3 candidates for your new sidekick, sir." "Thanks, Hiromasa-san. I'll be in my office filing today's paperwork if anything important comes up," he said after she gave him the papers. As he entered his office, Hisashi removed his jetpack and plugged it into the charging port. Even though that battle had used up more energy than he had anticipated, it would be fully charged by the following day and he could use it for about 3 days, depending on how many people he had to carry. After filing his paperwork for the day's events, he took a seat at his desk and had another half-hour to review the candidates. Rengoku Satsuki, hero name, Brightspot, was an older sidekick. Brightspot was also her quirk. She could shoot fire from a gleaming circle in the center of her forehead. Her hero outfit consisted of a loose dress with fiery decals, and she was rather small, with turquoise eyes and fiery red hair. The second, Yamaguchi Junko, hero name, Magma Girl, was younger and had only graduated from Shiketsu High School 2 years prior. She was able to create magma pools from her mouth thanks to a quirk she called Volcano. Her height was comparable to Hisashi's, but she was a bit taller, had blue eyes and white hair, and wore a military-style cap that Shiketsu High required its students to wear along with a bodysuit that was dark red and black and patterned like hot lava. The final one was a UA graduate who was about Yamaguchi's age. Hero name, Blazer. High name, Okubo Ryama. Firepower was his quirk, and the more intensely his flames burned, the stronger he became. Wearing an open yellow vest, yellow pants, and black boots, he had the appearance of a red-furred minotaur. Even though each of them had amazing quirks, he still needed to determine whether they were mentally prepared. Before realizing it was time to clock out, he called each of them and set up interviews for the following week. It was quiet on the way home after he changed into his gray suit and red tie. When he arrived home, he discovered that Izuku was occupied with sucking in Hisako's stomach and forcing it out. Hisako was bouncing while laughing, and when she saw Hisashi, she exclaimed, "Daddy's home." She leapt off her brother and ran to her father, who picked her up as she delightedly filled him in on her day of hosting tea parties, baking, and discussing Izuku dating. When Hisashi heard that final one, he asked, "Really now?" Izuku looked embarrassed and replied, "I'm not dating anyone yet, and that's the problem. I have 3 different girls I'm considering, and I can't decide." Hisashi informed Izuku, "After dinner and our sparring match, we'll discuss that." Hisashi and Izuku sparred for an hour in the home gym after Izuku consented, as they usually did. Hisashi was glad that Izuku's romantic thoughts were not interfering with their sparring. Izuku was precise and focused in his movements, and Hisashi could see that the battle in the USJ had strengthened his resolve to improve as a fighter. Izuku shocked Hisashi by putting his arms around his waist, lifting him up, and then slamming him to the ground, causing the house to tremble and Hisashi to release him from the chokehold. Izuku mounted on top of him, but Hisashi assumed the mount position by encircling Izuku with his legs, then encircling him with his arms and twisting around. Izuku brought Hisashi close enough to put his arms around him and hold him motionless by grabbing and bending Hisashi's elbow. It was a position designed to guarantee a tie, not to win. With all of their strength, Izuku and Hisashi fought against one another, with Izuku trying to hold his father while Hisashi was determined to break the hold. For 10 minutes, Hisashi and Izuku battled in this manner, and Hisashi felt a surge of pride upon realizing that this was his son's innate strength without the need for one for all. Izuku would soon overtake him. They would have continued to fight, but Hisashi's phone alerted them that they had engaged in combat for an entire hour. Izuku released Hisashi's legs and let him fall on his back. Both of them were sweating profusely, and Izuku's breathing became more labored. After struggling to get to his feet, Hisashi helped Izuku up by holding his hand. "You're almost there, son. At this rate, by the time you graduate from UA, you'll make me look like a chump," he said, putting an arm around his son's shoulders. Hisashi patted Izuku's shoulder and they parted ways to clean up for dinner. Izuku paused to catch his breath before answering, "Yeah, I hope so. After seeing All Might fight that Nomu thing firsthand, I realized how much harder I need to push myself if I'm going to be as good as him." Izuku discussed girls with his father after Hisako went to bed, and the Midoriya family all enjoyed dinner together and chatted about their days. He explained the characteristics of Ochako, Momo, and Tsuyu as well as what attracted him to each of the particular girls. Hisashi, meanwhile, took him seriously and nodded in agreement. Izuku had never before discussed girls he had crushes on who weren't heroes in a serious manner. Izuku said, "So what do I do? How can I pick between them?" after concluding his statement. "Son, I can see that your mom and I taught you well. It's obvious that you value all those girls for who they are instead of how they look." Hisashi grinned slightly and leaned back on the couch before stating, "But I think to figure this out, you might need to figure out something that men have been debating for centuries." He was asked by Izuku, "What's that?" Hisashi asked him directly, "Do you prefer boobs or butts?" The green-haired heads of Izuku and Inko turned red with embarrassment as they stared at him for 5 minutes, too shocked to speak. Hisashi blasted on, "I admit, I'm an ass man myself. And frankly son, your mom has the second best ass I've ever seen," after realizing they were not answering. Hisashi. Inko slapped his arm firmly, almost screaming in shame. For all the good it did, she might as well have slapped a rock. His mother said, "Oh, if I have the second best ass, then who's the best?" before Izuku could speak because he was too shocked. Taking a look at her, Hisashi said, "Mirko." After pausing and taking a seat, Inko mutely uttered, "That's fair." Izuku, whose face was still flushed, said, "This isn't what I wanted to hear. I was hoping you had some advice from when you were dating or something, Dad." Hisashi exhaled and replied, "Sorry, son. But your mom was the only woman I ever dated. I was too shy in high school to date. I knew on our first date that she was the one for me. Everything just clicked. As we talked on our first date I had the feeling, this is the one I want to make happiest in the world. That was how I knew. You got any ideas, Ink-chan?" Inko paused for a moment before speaking. "Well, I admit, Izuku, your father was the third man I was ever in a serious relationship with. My first one was a senpai in high school. Guro Rokuro senpai. He was the captain of the kendo club and quite a gentleman. We often talked in class, and I would watch his matches. I admit, just about all my firsts I had with Guro senpai," Inko said, blushing slightly. Roughly 3 weeks before I met your father, we broke up because our coworkers thought we made a cute couple and we weren't really interested in each other. We broke up after he graduated and went to Oxford University in England. My next serious romance was with a coworker named Takeda Oshiro. He was a kind man but not very engaging. The truth is that finding love takes time, son. There is no assurance that the romance will endure, and you were a high school student. Most romances in high school end. My recommendation would be to speak with the girls and invite them all to go on a OHA 2 dates with you. You can then determine whether they are interested in you. It should be simpler after that, Inko informed him. Okay, Izuku replied, thanks, mom and dad. After returning to his room, Izuku considered what he would say to the girls. The day after his talk, Izuku woke up determined to talk to Momo, Ochako, and Tsuyu. He wasn't sure what would happen. Maybe one of the girls would reject him, maybe all of them would, but he knew he had to talk to them and let them know how he felt. After all, nothing ventured, nothing gained. He trained with a will, pushing himself to get stronger and push his limits. After he finished, he experimented and focused on the power of one for all full cowling, pushing his limits. He started at 30%, then forced more of the power through his body. He was certain he reached 33%, but then he felt as though his muscles were being torn apart, so he stopped. Izuku sighed as he made his way to breakfast. Izuku changed into his school uniform when he was ready and went to school, but while traveling by train, someone halted him and said, "Hey, that uniform, you're from UA, are you not?" Yeah, I am, confirmed Izuku. Wow, were you present when the villains were involved? Yes, Izuku replied. After that, he managed to get off the train and used full cowling to run through the streets at breakneck speed so he could get to UA early, but chaos seemed to break out as people rushed him, asking him questions about the villains and what it was like in UA. Izuku was overwhelmed and tried to answer as best he could, but there were a lot of people asking and he had to focus not to miss his stop. When he got to class 1A, he noticed that half of his class, including the girls, were already there. Yaoyorozu, Ochako, Su-chan, he said, and then he approached them. Hey, they all said, and Izuku said quietly, can I talk to you, after class, about something? Say, lunchtime? Deku, what's the matter? Ochako questioned him. Izuku blushed and said, nothing's wrong, but if I can, I'd still like to speak with you guys privately. For example, at lunchtime? Momo said, all right, Midoriya, I'll be there. Me too, concurred Ochako. The last person in their class to arrive was Marie Freeman, an American girl with a bandage on her cheek who looked very forlorn as she entered. Same, Kiro, Tsuyu said, and they all went to their desks as their classmates arrived, with everyone wondering if Aizawa-sensei would arrive. How are you, Marie-chan? Tsuyu questioned her. Marie gave Tsuyu a small smile and said, I'm just disappointed. That monster killed me in one blow, as if I were a novice, even though I thought I was hot stuff. I'm not strong enough, even though I thought I was. Kirishima's words, it's not your fault, that thing was really strong. It engaged all might in combat. In fact, it took him more than 300 punches to defeat it. You're alive, at least, and you also succeeded in saving Aizawa-sensei. Thanks, Marie said before approaching Tsuyu and holding her hands. I heard that you shielded me from the bad boss guy, Marie said. You put your life in danger for me. I will consider you my sister from now on. Just let me know if you ever need assistance, and I'll do everything in my power to support you, all right? Tsuyu replied, I understand, I'm just glad you're all right, Marie-chan, Kiro. Everyone discussed the USJ attack and the treatment they received from the public on their way to school for a few minutes after this. Kaminari remarked, it's like we're celebrities now. I know, so many people talked to me on the way to school, said Hagakure. It was so different. I almost felt like a real hero, Ochako said. Some kids even wished me good luck when they saw me. To be honest, I felt completely overwhelmed, and it's definitely different. Izuku admitted, I can't imagine being the center of attention all the time. Idiots, Kachan remarked, they weren't concerned about us. Those dreary villains were their concern. They don't care about us at all. If you truly listen to the news, it was all about those League of Villains guys. When the classroom door opened, everyone was startled to see Aizawa-sensei enter, completely covered in bandages, so that no one would have recognized him if his long hair hadn't been unwrapped. So dedicated, they all murmured. As he hobbled into the classroom, Aizawa-sensei said, now then, I have an important announcement to make. What now? Everyone pondered what else might occur at this point. We will start the UA in 2 weeks. Sports festival, Aizawa-sensei said, his mouth bandaged. So quickly. Izuku inquired. How about the attack by the villain? Said Iida. Aizawa-sensei stated. The principal determined that postponing the sports festival would only make UA seem frightened and ill-equipped to defend our pupils. To keep you safe during the sports festival, we are taking extra care. Participation is crucial because your performance at the sports festival may influence which heroes hire you as a work-study, intern, or even a sidekick. It's your chance to truly go beyond and demonstrate your abilities to the world. Are you prepared? We will be, Izuku declared, his voice full of resolve. With a slam of her right fist into her palm, Marie declared, I'm going to give it my all and prove I'm no wimp. Aizawa-sensei declared, that is all. I suggest you use your remaining time in homeroom to work on any schoolwork you need to do, before he wrapped himself in a yellow sleeping bag and went to sleep. This is so exciting, Ashido remarked, it's our big chance. With a determined expression on her face and an aura around her, Ochako said, yes, and then she threw her fist in the air and yelled, everyone, let's give it our all. Yeah! Half the other students yelled. Ochako turned to those who didn't respond and yelled again, I said, let's give it our all. The other half responded, yeah, but with considerably less zeal. The rest of the school day was mediocre, but there was a buzz of excitement as everyone considered how they would prepare for the sports festival. As lunchtime drew near, Izuku began to dread talking to the girls. Would any of them accept him? Or would they be too preoccupied with the sports festival? There was a chance that he would be rejected by all of them. Izuku considered the sports festival and realized that he needed to make the most of his time. He needed to be stronger to ensure he could win. When lunch finally arrived, Izuku grabbed his lunch and saw Ochako, Tsuyu, and Momo seated together at a table. They discussed the sports festival and how to get ready for it for a few minutes while they ate, but after the food was finished, Ochako asked Izuku, so, Deku, what is it you wanted to talk about with us? Izuku concentrated and took a deep breath after swallowing his last bite and hurriedly drinking some juice because his throat felt dry from nerves. Ever since the USJ, I've been thinking about what I wanted to do, Izuku said. I want to try some things that I haven't really done before. Izuku explained, I've never really had a girlfriend before, but I want to try now. Uraraka Ochako, you're one of the few friends I've had, so kind and encouraging, Izuku said after swallowing and forcing himself to look into each of their eyes. You are among the most elegant and intelligent people I have ever met, Yayorozu Momo. And you are unquestionably among the bravest individuals I have ever met, Asui Tsuyu. I can't decide between the three of you because anyone would be fortunate to date any one of you. In order for us to get to know one another and for you to determine whether I'm suitable for you, my parents suggested that I tell you this and, if you're open to it, take you all out on at least 2 dates. Tsuyu had a finger on her chin as she looked up, Ochako was flushed, and Momo stated, you do realize, most people would think that you were some kind of player, asking 3 girls to date you. Izuku nodded and flushed, I understand. But you are all so incredible that I truly can't choose between the 3 of you. What sort of dates did you have in mind? Then Tsuyu inquired. I hadn't given it much thought. For example, going out, eating, watching a movie, or shopping, perhaps. And you could choose what we do on the second date if you want to go. Hama. Izuku felt more anxious than when he was fighting villains at the USJ after all 3 of the girls considered this while glancing at him. At last, I'll do it, Ochako said. I'll do it too, concurred Tsuyu. When Momo finally said, I can try this, Izuku hurriedly added, I think we can do 1 date on Fridays, 1 on Saturdays, and 1 on Sundays so that we can do this before the start of the sports festival. All 4 of the teenagers were flushed as they realized what was going on. What would you like to do? When Ochako said, I'll go tonight, Friday is 6, she was flushed. I have no problem going to lunch on Saturdays. Momo smiled slightly and said, there's a new exhibit at an art museum next Saturday that I'd like to go to. I don't mind Sundays, Tsuyu stated, but I would like to visit Dagoba Beach on our second date. I've heard it's much better now. After giving a nod in agreement, Izuku hurriedly took notes. How about your second date, Ochako? Izuku asked the girl, who was still flushed. Ochako began massaging the back of her head before responding, for the second date, we can just take a stroll in a park. That would be acceptable to me. Okay, Izuku said, closing the notebook, unless you want to see a movie, I can take you shopping. Dinner and a little window shopping is fine with me, Ochako said after the girls all shook their heads. He looked at the girls and said, I hope I can do a good job with our dates. Izuku nodded and blushed as he took each girl's hand in turn, first Ochako, then Momo, and finally Tsuyu. As best they could, they all carried on with their day, but when school finally let out, Izuku realized what had happened. and his head almost exploded because it felt like steam was exploding from every pore in his body. As he left school, he muttered to himself, "Holy woe, I'm actually dating 3 girls at once. I have to get home and get ready. This is so real, it's unbelievable." When Izuku burst into his house, he immediately headed to his room to decide what to wear for his first date with Ochikoa, his first date ever. After remembering that they were only going to go window shopping and have dinner, he finally settled on a polo shirt and jeans. Izuku left his room, checked his debit card balance, and was relieved to see that he had a 45,000 yen, which would be enough for this date. As he exited the restroom, Inko said, "Izuku, where's the fire?" He paused and declared, "Tonight I'm going on a date." He was so nervous and excited that he said this more loudly than he intended to, practically screaming it out loud. The butterflies in his stomach were moving at supersonic speed. "Oh my, young man, what are you doing?" she asked him, appearing somewhat suspicious and almost as anxious. "It's just window shopping," Izuku responded. "I swear, that's all, and dinner, too." Izuku's hands were bigger, stronger, and had calluses from his training, as well as faint scars from when he broke them with One for All. "You've got 'em so big," Inko said, taking Izuku's hands and examining them. "Just promise me that you'll be a gentleman," she said. "Who's the lucky girl, by the way?" "Uraraka Ochako," Izuku replied. "She was the girl who stopped me from falling to my face at the entrance exam." Inko replied, "She certainly looked like a very lovely young lady." Izuku said, "She really is," and then he left his house, texting Ochako, "Where should we meet?" He took a bus that he knew would drop him off close to the mall after Ochako texted him the address. While waiting, he thought about everything that had happened to Hima, the USJ attack, going on his first date and how different it was from his childhood fantasies. He was so preoccupied with his thoughts that he only snapped out of them when the bus driver said that they had arrived at their stop. Izuku got off the bus and started toward the mall. After arriving at the mall, he noticed Ochako waiting there, looking a little anxious. She was dressed simply in a pink t-shirt and denim shorts and sneakers. "I'm here, Ochako," Izuku said tremblingly. She waved at him, obviously feeling as anxious as he did. "Hi," she said. "Sorry I'm a little late," Izuku replied. "The bus was a little late." After saying, "It's all right," Ochako began to walk alongside him. Taking the initiative, Izuku said, "Where would you like to check out first?" When she said, "I heard this mall has a good clothing store I was hoping to look at," Izuku nodded and said, "Lead the way." "I'm not really much of a fashion critic," Izuku told Ochako as they walked through the store, "and you're the kind of girl that would make any outfit look cute." Izuku was a little relieved that the store was a typical one, with lots of lovely dresses everywhere. With a blush and a smile, Ochako said, Thank you." When she selected a frilly pink dress and went to try it on, Izuku smiled and blushed too, wondering what it would look like on her as she waited for her to put it on outside. Ochako declared, "I'm ready," and emerged from the changing area. "Wow," Izuku exclaimed, gazing at her. The skirt was shorter than he had anticipated and revealed a large portion of her legs, which were smooth and soft, and he found himself gazing at them until he remembered to look up and remarked, "You look amazing in that dress, Ochako-chan." "Thanks," Ochako grinned. "I believe I can get this one because it's also on clearance." Izuku told her, "I can pay for the dress if you want," and she tried on a number of other dresses, but in her opinion, none of them were as cute as the pink one on clearance that she claimed she wanted. All of the dresses looked good on her because she was such a cute girl. "Are you certain?" said Ochako. "I'm sure," Izuku replied. "You like that dress, and you're really cute in it too." "I hope that you will like wearing this dress," Izuku said as he handed her the dress after paying for it. "Thank you, Deku." Ochako grinned broadly. Izuku persuaded Ochako to go look at some action figures, but there were no new All Might ones. They kept strolling through the mall, perusing books, comics, and magazines. He took note of a sign stating that Hellcat would be launching a new line of action figures in 2 weeks. They then decided it was time for dinner, so they went to the mall's food court, where Ochako ordered chicken and fried rice from a Chinese restaurant and Izuku ordered a chicken salad and a smoothie from another store. They discussed their families and schoolwork while they were eating, with Izuku managing to keep his father's identity a secret from Ochako, who was very interested in him, while Izuku learned about her parents and how their construction company failed. "I think you could use your quirk to help them save on construction equipment," Izuku replied. "That's what I said," Ochako informed him, "but Daddy said that all they wanted was for me to be content and live my life to the fullest. And I never forget that Mom and Daddy were always happy when they saw heroes, regardless of how horrible things were. I aspire to be a hero who can make others happy like them and, ideally, earn enough money to do the same for them. Izuku gave this a nod, saying, I understand. I want to be a hero for that exact reason, to make people happy, like my dad and All Might. You're a lot more selfless than me, Deku, Ochako remarked. Izuku told her, I don't think what you want is selfish, Ochako, adding that all good children want to support their parents. Nothing about that is greedy. Additionally, it's not a bad idea because top heroes do earn a lot of money. Looking up at a happy family, Ochako nodded and said, I hope I can do that. I know you can, Izuku said, reaching out and taking one of her hands in his. I think you're a good hero already, Ochako. They both looked into each other's eyes and then turned away, still flushed, but as they left the mall, they walked hand in hand, still flushed, and they parted at the bus station. Izuku couldn't stop thinking about Ochako as he went to bed that night. He saw her smiling, her in that adorable dress, her resolve as she talked about wanting to be a hero, and finally, how small and strong her hand was in his. He was certain that he wanted to kiss her on their next date that night. When Izuku woke up the following morning, he was pondering what he could do on their first date with Yaoyorozu Momo. Unfortunately, he had to put this on hold because he and his father needed to work out today. He hastily prepared himself and proceeded with his morning ritual with his father. After they finished, Hisashi grinned and said, I see that your girl troubles aren't distracting you at least. Izuku replied, yeah, but I'm still in the woods. Although I genuinely like Ochako, I also want to give Asui Suyu and Yaoyorozu Momo a chance. As they exited the gym, Hisashi informed him, you certainly have interesting tastes in women, son. However, based on what you've been telling us about them, I suppose you have an idea of what you want. I honestly don't know how I can choose between them, Izuku admitted. They're all great, brave, kind, and their individual traits too. Still can't decide the physical type you want, huh? Hisashi made fun of him. They all have good traits to them, it makes it hard, Izuku said, flushed. Izuku hurried to his bathroom to clean up after Hisashi's laughter. What time should I pick you up? He texted Momo after finishing that. Momo got back to me right away, and I wanted to grab lunch together. Around 10:30, I will arrive at your place in a less noticeable car. How rich is she? Izuku asked out loud when he saw the text. Despite his inability to speak, his family was extremely wealthy because his father was the former number 2 hero, also known as the symbol of unity. In addition to having 3 bedrooms, a home gym, a library, 3 toilets, and 2 bathrooms, his parents' home had saved a significant amount of money since his father's return. When he was 20, his parents informed him last year that he had a trust fund worth 60 million yen, and with interest added, it was likely even higher. For Hisako, there was also another for the same sum. His parents wished to give their kids an advantage in life. After removing his mind from this, he considered his outfit. Momo was a well-bred girl, so even though it was just a casual date, would she really accept a man who showed up in jeans and a polo shirt? He was certain that they would be walking around a lot, so he wore one of his nicer green button-up shirts, black pants, and his usual shoes. Dad, should I wear cologne for this date? He asked his father as he was eating breakfast with his family after getting dressed. After swallowing his meal, Hisashi responded, are you heading somewhere upscale? You look better than you did the day before. We're just going to the mall, but, I mean, Momo is upper class. I thought I should be a little better dressed. Hisashi told him, don't bother with cologne unless she's the one you intend to be serious with or you're going to a fancy place. Additionally, don't use too much cologne when you do wear it. Inko spoke up, yes. I recall being able to smell Hisashi's cologne from a half-kilometer away on our first date. He almost took a bath in it. Upon recalling this memory, Hisashi laughed and said, yeah, a little on the back of your hand and rub some on your face is enough. About 3 sprays worth, no more. After nodding in agreement, Izuku played with Hisako for a while. She was posing as the sparkling princess, and he was her faithful golden knight. He spent so much time doing this that the only date he could recall was the one when Momo's maid Roberta knocked on the door and said, I am here to pick you up, Midoriya-san. Roberta curtsied as Izuku answered the door, saying, Mistress awaits you, sir. Izuku waved his family off and said, right, thanks, I'm coming, before he followed Roberta to a bright red Rolls-Royce. He wasn't sure what model it was because he wasn't a car enthusiast, but it looked really vintage. Momo said, hello, as Roberta opened the backseat for him. Yaoyorozu Momo had her hair down and reaching all the way down her back, and she was wearing a simple yet elegant red dress, white light jacket, and slightly red heels. Izuku managed to say, hi, while gazing at her. You look really great. Is this too fancy? I wasn't sure how I should dress. You look fine, Midoriya-kun, Momo said with a laugh. We won't be going anywhere fancy. Just the mall. Izuku and Momo talked about their schoolwork, their preparations for the sports festival, and Izuku's experience of having a younger sister while Roberta drove them along. Momo said, I wish I had a younger sibling, but she and her father had decided they only wanted one ideal child. Although it could be challenging at times to live up to their expectations, I never wanted anything. I think you're doing amazingly, Yaoyorozu-san, Izuku stated to her. I heard you got in on recommendations, and you're the vice class representative. Please, you can call me Momo, he was told. Or Yao Momo, that's what some of our classmates like calling me. You got it, Momo. Izuku exclaimed, Yao Momo, before glancing out the window and saying, this isn't the mall. Well, this isn't the same mall you might have taken Uraraka-chan to, Momo replied. But it's still a mall, Hapes Mall to be exact. Hapes. Izuku shouted in surprise as the mall appeared. With 3 stories above ground and 3 below, more than 170 stores, and an integrated movie theater, Hapes Mall was a shopping destination for the wealthy. Izuku, I feel underdressed now, acknowledged. Momo insisted, you're fine, while Roberta parked the vehicle. Izuku felt so uncomfortable that he offered Momo his arm to help her out after they got out. Momo laughed, but she accepted it anyhow. Izuku was flushed the entire time, and Momo's face was slightly flushed as they entered Hapes Mall. It would be an understatement to say that Izuku found the experience to be overwhelming. Izuku had grown up in a more middle-class environment, and every place they visited was upscale and opulent. It wasn't typical for him, and he soon discovered that, unlike Ochako, he couldn't really afford to buy anything for Momo from the mall. I'm afraid this is a little too pricey for me, Izuku sighed as they came to a stop at a bench. There's not really anything I can get you from here. Momo reassured him, it's okay, it's just nice to go around with someone. I still feel bad about it. Izuku clarified, I hoped I could do the same for all of you. I bought Ochako a gift when we went out yesterday. Well, we could go see a movie after lunch, that would be fine with me, Momo continued. With a nod, Izuku led them to the food court, where he saw that every restaurant was real. All he could say was, I think you should choose where we go to eat. Momo made the decision that they would dine at Ibisco d'Or, a classy Italian restaurant in Hapes Mall. As soon as they entered, they were seated at a lovely table close to a painting of a seaside castle. When their menus were handed to them, Izuku sighed, relieved that at least they were in Japanese. The only Italian he knew were the profanity his father liked to use. While Izuku chose a light main course of eggplant parmigiana, Momo ordered chicken pasta al dente. They also enjoyed a light salad and tomato soup as appetizers, and for dessert, they split a piece of chocolate cake. With each bite, Izuku could understand why Momo picked this restaurant because all of the food was expertly prepared and he could taste the difference from less expensive ones he had visited previously. This is amazing, Izuku replied. Even my dad can't make Italian this good, and he actually went there. I imagine Phoenix would, Momo said with a smile. Izuku paused his meal and gazed at her. I realized almost immediately after meeting your father that he was the one who saved my father, Momo said with a small smile. His voice was a little higher but had the same intonations, he had a similar build, and, lastly, there was no doubt about who he was. Despite the fact that it does seem rather problematic, I can understand the reasons. Is this date only because of my dad? Izuku asked after nodding and taking a sip of his water. No, I just thought you were an interesting person, and you were pretty bold to ask 3 girls out at once to date, Momo said, shaking her head. I was curious about your personality on a more intimate level. I think you are a good, honest, and brave person, Midoriya Izuku, and will make a good hero one day, Momo said, reaching out and taking his hand. Saying, you will too, Izuku took her hand back. After eating, they went to the movie theater at the Hapes Mall. They decided to watch a romantic comedy about a man who, while trying to win over the madam of an onsen, had a quirk that made him into a child. It wasn't as much fun as they had hoped, but they thought it might be interesting. Izuku pondered at the end whether the entire date was marred by this one film. As they exited the theater, Izuku apologized for choosing such a mediocre film. It's okay, Momo said with a smile. In any case, we both agreed on it. Midoriya-kun, I still had a great time with you. They spent the drive home discussing how they would rehearse for the sports festival as they left the Hapes Mall arm in arm as they had entered. Momo also clarified that he would have to wear his finest attire for their upcoming date the following week. When they reached his house, Izuku prepared to leave after taking notes on everything she had told him, but Momo intervened. He was shocked when Momo kissed his cheek. When Izuku felt her gentle lips on his cheek, he thought his head would blow up, but then she laughed and said, "I look forward to school, Midoriya-kun." "Ah yes." Before leaving her car, he managed to say, "See you there." He went to his room, his head still red. "Why is this so hard for me?" he muttered to himself as he buried his face in his hands.
I will continue the story in next part. Till then, bye bye.